Chapter 906. Ning Jing didn't expect Han Yunxi to admit her affair with Long Fei Yi so directly. She also didn't expect Han Yunxi to ask her so directly. She was stunned. She thought that no one would ask about that feeling in her life. She thought that love would be buried deep in her memory with her and Tang Li's complete breakup. She really didn't expect anyone to understand. But so what if someone understood? Love. If she didn't love him, why would she allow herself to be pregnant with his child? If she didn't love him, why wouldn't she expose his relationship with Long Fei Yi until now? However, this kind of love was not allowed. Just like the child in her belly, it could only hide its identity and was destined not to receive blessings. I don't love him. Ning Jing refused to admit it. Han Yunxi frowned and said rudely, Ning Jing, I look down on your cowardice. Why, you dare to love him but don't dare to admit it. I don't. Ning Jing still refused. Okay, I'll go and kill Tang Li now. Anyway, he will never betray the Tang sect if he falls into the hands of the D clan. The sooner he dies, the sooner he can be reincarnated. Han Yunxi was about to call for help as she spoke. Ning Jing rushed over like a madwoman and covered her mouth tightly. Those who didn't know better would think that Ning Jing was going to murder Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi pushed Ning Jing's hand away with all her strength and asked angrily, You still won't admit it? Since you're afraid, you might as well stop loving him. Han Yunxi, do you think love is a negotiation? Do you think you can say no just because you want to? Ning Jing finally broke down. She fell to the ground, and tears fell one by one like beads dropping from a string. I love him. Han Yunxi, I love Tang Li. I love him very, very much, but I can't. I can't betray my brother anymore. I've already caused him to be like this. I can't love him anymore. I don't dare to love him anymore. Grievances and self-reproach welled up in her heart. Her tears had already burst out of her eyes. Even though she had brothers and sisters, she had never been taken care of or cherished since she was young. Between brothers and sisters, apart from responsibility, there was only the kinship hidden deep in the bottom of their hearts, that mutual love. Since she was young, she had been dressing up as a man. Most of the time, she had almost forgotten that she was a woman. That was until she met Tang Li. No matter how she ordered him around or tormented him, even when she hit or cursed him, he'd always chuckled and protected her meticulously. He never retorted when she cursed him or hit him. Even though she knew all along that it wasn't true, even though she had always been on her guard, she was still infatuated with the feeling of being protected and doted on. In the end, she still fell in love with that man and relied on him. At first, Han Yunxi's face was cold. But gradually, her heart was broken by Ning Jing's cries. She knew the pain and suffering of loving someone but not being able to love him. She understood it all too well. Han Yunxi hugged Ning Jing gently and let Ning Jing bury her head in her lap. She said faintly, Ning Jing, don't cry. Remember, it's your own business who you like and dislike. There's nothing you can or can't do. There's only willing and unwilling. Ning Jing suddenly pushed Han Yunxi away. Her face was full of tears and she was very agitated. I can't. I can't. Han Yunxi, you can't. We can't let the D clan down like this. We can't hurt Ning Jing like this. I didn't hurt him. That was an accident. Han Yunxi's emotions were also fluctuating. Ning Jing, Eastern and Western Qin have a secret ceasefire agreement. After settling the Feng clan, I will return to the D clan. As the princess of Western Qin, I will advance and retreat together with the D clan. Even if I have to go to the battlefield and meet Long Fei Yi on the battlefield, I won't refuse. I don't want to let down Ning Cheng's loyalty. Ning Jing was very surprised. I don't believe it. Uncle Ching should know about this. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Han Yunqi said seriously. Ning Jing couldn't understand. Why? Why? Han Yunqi then realized that Ning Jing was actually also a silly girl. She asked in return, because feelings aren't negotiations. You can't just say you don't love him anymore. Because I'm the same as you. We're both people of Western Qin. We can't betray the D clan's loyalty all these years. So, we have to bravely love, but we also have to bravely shoulder our responsibilities. A bitter smile flashed across Han Yunqi's face. Ning Jing, even if you don't have a good ending, at least you have truly loved and worked hard, right? Long Fei Yi and I have made an agreement. We will meet on the battlefield, but we won't fight with swords. While she was explaining, she took out an item. That item was none other than the East Qin Imperial Jade Seal. Ning Jing's eyes widened in shock as her tears stopped abruptly. Long Fei Yi gave it to me. When I leave him, I'll return it to him. Han Yunqi was clearly smiling as she spoke, but she didn't know why her eyes were suddenly wet. However, she stubbornly held back her tears. Her smile was calm and confident. Ning Jing, do you know why Long Fei Yi and I fought against Bai Yanqing? To save Gu Beiyue. To find out the true reason for the civil war in the Great Qin Empire. The reason for the civil war in the past, East Qin and Western Qin had different stories, so this could be a misunderstanding. Do you understand? This. Ning Jing was very surprised. Ning Jing always thought that Long Fei Yi was lying to me and using me. Han Yunqi carefully put away the East Qin Imperial Jade Seal and said, Ning Jing, you and we will find out the truth of the past. This is the only chance for you and Tang Li to be together. Ning Jing's hand unconsciously stroked the small bump hidden under her loose dress. This was not just a chance for her and Tang Li, it was also a chance for this innocent child. Han Yunqi, why are you so sure that I will believe you and help you? Ning Jing asked back. Because you and I are in the same situation. Han Yunqi honestly said, instead of hiding the pain, it is better to give it a try. No matter how bad the result is, can it be worse than your current situation? Ning Jing's eyes slowly fell onto Han Yunqi's sleeve. The East Qin Imperial Jade Seal was hidden in that sleeve. She looked at it without moving, making Han Yunqi's heart filled with vigilance. She and Ning Jing were completely devoted, so Ning Jing wouldn't sell her, right? If Ning Jing revealed the matter of the Imperial Jade Seal, Long Fei Yi would be in big trouble. Ning Jing. Han Yunqi timidly asked. She hoped that she didn't misjudge her and didn't misjudge the relationship between Ning Jing and Tang Li. At this time, Ning Jing finally came back to her senses. She gave a self-deprecating laugh. Han Yunqi, our situation is different. Long Fei Yi pampers you, but Tang Li. Her smile was incomparably bitter. It was funny enough that she fell in love with her enemy, but it was unrequited love. Tang Li doesn't love me. Ning Jing bravely said. A complicated look flashed in Han Yunqi's eyes. She couldn't see through that brat Tang Li's thoughts. If she hadn't tested Ning Jing's thoughts today, she would have thought that Ning Jing wasn't worthy of Tang Li. Now she hoped that Tang Li wouldn't disappoint Ning Jing's sincerity. Han Yunqi was deep in thought, but who would have thought that Ning Jing would wipe her tears and seriously say, Han Yunqi, I'll take a gamble. Tang Li, he. Before Han Yunqi could finish, Ning Jing interrupted her, it's fine as long as I love him. I only have one condition. Ning Jing was indeed the bravest woman in the D clan. What condition? Feel free to state it. Han Yunqi smiled. You're not allowed to sacrifice any of the D clan's interests. Ning Jing said seriously. I understand. Han Yunxi nodded. Say it. What can I do to help? Ning Jing asked straightforwardly. Help me take control of Myriad Merchant Hole. Before your brother returns, I want the D clan to submit to me and not respect my status as a princess, Han Yunxi said seriously. You want to take control of the D clan before my brother returns. Ning Jing was smart. Yes. Han Yunxi admitted openly. If your brother falls into Bai Yuqiao's hands, the D clan will be in danger. Han Yunxi, do you suspect that my brother will betray Western Qin? Ning Jing was angry. I'm afraid that he'll be too disappointed and be instigated, Han Yunxi said lightly. My brother won't. Ning Jing said angrily. I guarantee with my life that my brother won't betray Western Qin. Han Yunxi, do you know that a few decades ago, the D clan didn't know that Western Qin's imperial family still had an orphan alive? The D clan also thought that Western Qin's revenge was their responsibility and didn't stop searching for the Black clan and the Li clan. Han Yunxi, no one will personally destroy their own beliefs. Ning Qing won't, but what about the others? There are many fifth elders in the D clan, but there are also first elders. Isn't that right? Han Yunxi said seriously. Ning Jing, I don't have much time. Long Fei Yi still has a plan to lure Bai Yanqing out. I hope to openly join forces with him in the name of Western Qin's princess to fight against Bai Yanqing and publicly question the Great Qin Empire's civil war. Actually, Long Fei Yi hadn't spoken directly that day, but she understood that he was making concessions. Long Fei Yi had given her two choices. One was that she could take control of the D clan within 10 days and have them listen to her orders. She could also agree to join forces with East Qin against the Wind clan and question the civil war of the past. The other was that he would take her away while the two of them would deal with Bai Yanqing in private and refuse the D clan's participation. If the D clan couldn't capture Bai Yanqing, then they wouldn't be able to threaten Jun Yixia. The D clan would lose the war in Northern Li for sure. Ning Jing remained silent for a long time before she finally told Han Yunxi something crucial. Han Yunxi, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium has suffered heavy losses over the past 2 years because of the decline in the medicine business. Moreover, the southern and southern regions are now under the control of the Commander-in-Chief's estate. Even Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's most profitable businesses aren't benefiting from them. Although Tianning's national treasury is under our control, there's not much silver left after years of war. After a pause, she decided to throw caution to the wind and say, Han Yunxi, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium is nothing but an empty shell now. It's no longer what it used to be. The gambling houses and auction halls are the foundation of the D clan's wealth. Once they're destroyed, the D clan won't be able to support the massive military expenditures in a year's time. Han Yunxi liked Ning Jing too much. It was so easy to work with smart people. Ning Jing's words had hit the nail on the head. Han Yunxi had always wanted to use the crisis at Myriad Merchant Hall to control the D clan's purse strings. Now it looked like she'd made the right bet. What's the situation with the two gambling houses now? Han Yunxi asked hastily. Ning Jing was about to answer and an attendant came over. Ning Jing quickly wiped her face clean and straightened out her clothes. Miss Jing, Tang Li is clamoring to see you, the attendant reported. Chapter 907. Tang Li wanted to see her. Ning Jing answered decisively, tell him I won't see him. By the way, tell him to give up on the thought of running away. He won't be able to escape. Han Yunxi smiled but did not say anything. She missed Tang Li a lot. She asked, if you don't go over, I'll go over. What do you want to do? Ning Jing became nervous. I'll chat with him for a while. I hit it off with him, so I'm talkative, Han Yunxi said with a smile. Do you think you'll hit it off with him now? Don't forget your identity, Ning Jing reminded cold. Want to make a bet? Han Yunxi asked. Although she had not seen Tang Li since her identity was revealed, and she did not know what kind of attitude Tang Li had toward her, she was sure that Tang Li had worshipped Long Fei Yi since he was young and did not dare to disobey him. Even Long Fei Yi acknowledged her. Would Tang Li dare to not acknowledge her as his sister-in-law? Ning Jing was not interested at all. She said cold, "Don't tell anyone about us. If you want to embarrass yourself, I won't stop you. I'll go to the auction house to take a look. The real culprit behind this matter is not that simple." Ning Jing was about to leave when Han Yunxi hurriedly stopped her. "Let me ask you something." "Speak." Ning Jing was very straightforward. "Where are Gu and Mu Ling are?" Han Yunxi asked seriously. Bai Yuqiao had fallen from Gu's hands to Ning Chang's. What happened in between? Gu's reply to her clearly said that everything was fine. Could it be that there was a trap in this letter? Gu left a long time ago. Mu Ling is with Deacon Jean. You go and find it yourself. After Ning Jing finished speaking, she turned around and left. Han Yunxi was a little surprised. Ning Jing's words meant that Gu and Mu Ling were both in the three-way black market. If Gu was gone, why would Mu Ling fall into Deacon Jin's hands? Did Gu lose Ling again? Han Yunxi chased after her, wanting to ask what had happened. Unfortunately, Ning Jing had already gone far. Han Yunxi did not have time to see Tang Li. She wanted to find Deacon Jean, but found that she did not know where to find him. She immediately asked someone to invite the fifth patriarch over. In this myriad merchant hall, other than Ning Jing, only the fifth patriarch could make her feel completely at ease. The moment the fifth patriarch came over, he told her about Gu and Mu Ling in the casino. Although the fifth patriarch did not know that Ning Qing had forged the letter, Han Yunxi could guess the whole story. Your Highness, Master Ning must have misunderstood you by placing Mu Ling under house arrest. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared, this subordinate will send someone to bring Miss Ling over, the fifth patriarch said respectfully. Han Yunxi nodded. Who knew that not long after, a servant came to report that Deacon Jean would not release her. Preposterous. This subordinate will go over personally. The fifth patriarch was about to leave in a huff, but Han Yunxi stopped him. She asked, why did Ning Qing place Mu Ling under house arrest at Deacon Jin's place? Although Deacon Jin's indenture contract was still with Myriad Merchant Hall and he was still the 1,000 Gold Pavilion's deacon, Deacon Jin's East Valley Bank was within his own sphere of influence and was independent of Myriad Merchant Hall. If Ning Cheng wanted to place Mu Ling under house arrest, it would be within Myriad Merchant Hall's sphere of influence. How could he let Deacon Jean bring her to the East Valley Bank? The fifth patriarch answered, Your Highness, Deacon Jean and Master Ning are master and servant, and also friends. This subordinate does not know about this matter. This subordinate will call Uncle Qing over. Uncle Qing should know. A complicated look flitted across Han Yunxi's eyes. She asked calmly, where is Deacon Jin's indenture contract? Myriad Merchant Hall servants are all under unified management. The indenture contracts are all stored in the warehouse. However, Deacon Jean is a little special. Master Ning has always kept the indenture contract for himself. This subordinate also does not know where it is. As the fifth patriarch spoke, he added, however, Master Ning may not carry it with him at all times. Uncle Qing may know. This subordinate will hurry and find him. There's no need. Han Yunxi stopped him. Take me to the East Valley Bank. The fifth patriarch was absolutely obedient to Han Yunxi. Without asking any questions, he pushed her out of the door and down a small path. At this moment, a black shadow flitted across the rooftop, following them. Who else could this black shadow be but Su Donglin? His Highness had instructed him to keep an eye on the princess. The moment the princess left Myriad Merchant Hall, he was to report her whereabouts to him. Han Yunxi was going to the East Valley Bank. At this moment, Uncle Ching and Deacon Jean were drinking tea in the back courtyard of the bank. Don't even think about the casino business. I dare to guarantee that Myriad Merchant Hall cannot save the casino. Even Golden Wing Palace and East Origin Hall do not have that ability. Uncle Ching said sternly. Deacon Jean had a rough grasp of the casino situation. Based on his judgment, the casino business in three-way black market would not be able to flourish for at least 2 years. The people of Golden Wing Palace had exposed all the cheating methods in the casino. Who would still dare to come and play? Deacon Jean drank the finest tea without saying a word. Uncle Ching continued, now that the princess has returned, your agreement with Ning Ching is also void. Don't blame me for not reminding you. You won't be able to get back that limitless gold card you lost to Gu. Deacon Jean, you're definitely going to suffer a loss this time. Actually, there was no need for Uncle Ching to remind him. From the moment Deacon Jean found out about Han Yunxi's identity, he knew that his deal with Ning Ching was definitely going to suffer a loss. He remained silent as Uncle Ching analyzed the situation. Sigh, so be it. It's just a mere limitless gold card. The East Valley Bank can naturally afford to suffer a loss. It's just that. Uncle Ching waited for a while, but didn't continue. Deacon Jean brushed his fine bangs aside, revealing the scar on his forehead. He asked, just what? When did Uncle Ching treat me like an outsider? Uncle Ching sighed softly. It's just that you put Han Yunxi's younger sister under house arrest, and offended her at the entrance of Myriad Merchant Hall. I'm afraid that she won't let the matter of you putting Mu Linger under house arrest go so easily. Deacon Jean was extremely puzzled. What exactly was Uncle Chang's motive for making a special trip here to sow discord between him and Han Yunxi again and again? Ning Cheng was loyal and devoted to Western Qin. Now that something had happened to him, what was Uncle Cheng trying to do? Deacon Jean weighed the situation for a while, then said mildly, Uncle Cheng, since you're treating me like an outsider, please go back. Uncle Cheng wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed. Jean Zi, Uncle Cheng likes your personality. Straightforward. Deacon Jean didn't say anything. He was usually a man of few words. Uncle Cheng leaned over and whispered something to Deacon Jean. In a few sentences, he explained the deal clearly. Uncle Cheng wanted Deacon Jean to use Mu Linger as a bargaining chip to get a huge sum of money from Myriad Merchant Hall. Once the deal was done, Uncle Cheng would return the indenture agreement to him. Deacon Jean was a smart person. He immediately realized that Uncle Cheng wanted to make things difficult for Han Yunxi while Ning Ching was away. Based on Han Yunxi's conflict with Ning Jing at the entrance of the main hall today, coupled with Uncle Cheng's attitude, Deacon Jean more or less guessed that Han Yunxi, this princess, hadn't truly gained a firm foothold in the D clan. Ning Ching wasn't around, so there might not be anyone in the D clan who was convinced by Han Yunxi. Deacon Jean was only curious about these matters. He was most concerned about his indenture agreement. How is it? Is my indenture agreement in Uncle Cheng's hands? Deacon Jean asked. Uncle Cheng immediately took out a handwritten copy. Take a look. Are there any discrepancies? Deacon Jin's calm expression changed slightly when he saw that thing. He had personally written the indenture agreement and signed it. He knew every word on it, even the position of his signature. However, a handwritten copy couldn't prove that his indenture agreement was in Uncle Cheng's hands. Given Uncle Cheng's status, it wasn't impossible for him to see this thing. Deacon Jean said indifferently, Uncle Ching, I can promise you anything if you can give me the indenture agreement. However, I want to see the real thing. A complicated look flitted across Uncle Chang's eyes. All right, I'll bring it to you tomorrow morning. I'm sure Han Yunxi will soon know that Mu Ling is here. You have to be prepared. Of course, Deacon Jean said indifferently. Uncle Ching hurriedly left through the back door. Almost at the same time, Fifth Elder pushed Han Yunxi into the guest hall. Master, Myriad Merchant Hall's Fifth Elder is here to see you. He even brought a woman in a wheelchair with him. This subordinate isn't sure of her identity, the attendant answered truthfully. Deacon Jean was slightly taken aback, but he quickly regained his senses. He said in a low voice, Watch Mu Ling carefully. Don't let her run around. She definitely can't come to the guest hall. The attendant obeyed and left. Deacon Jean then quickly walked to the guest hall. Along the way, he kept his head down, a shadow in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking about. Although Deacon Jean was somewhat fearful of Han Yunxi's identity, he still maintained his usual calm, even a little cold. Your Highness, what brings you here? He asked indifferently. He waved his hand to summon the attendant to serve tea. I heard that you weren't willing to release my sister, so I had no choice but to come personally. Han Yunxi was very direct. For the indenture agreement. What did Ningqing promise you? Why did he allow you to bring her here? Han Yunxi asked. Ningqing promised me back then. Do you acknowledge it, Princess? Deacon Jean retorted. I don't acknowledge it. I'm just asking, Han Yunxi said with a smile. Then there's no need for me to say. Deacon Jean did not stand on ceremony. If not for Uncle Chang's reminder, he really would not have thought that he still had Mu Ling to negotiate with Han Yunxi. It was still unknown whether Uncle Ching could produce the original indenture agreement. Moreover, even if Uncle Ching secretly gave him the indenture agreement, so what if he destroyed it? Myriad Merchant Hall would never admit it. Most people in the circle knew that he was Myriad Merchant Hall's slave. If he wanted to leave, how could he leave secretly? He had to leave openly. Although this woman in front of him had not gained a firm foothold in the D clan, he would rather bet his chips on this woman than on a villain like Uncle Ching. No need to say any more. Just tell me what you want in order for you to release my sister. Han Yunxi's expression was relaxed, as if this was not a very difficult matter. It had to be said that Han Yunxi's attitude made even the usually calm Deacon Jean somewhat flustered. However, he quickly calmed down. Your Highness, my condition is very simple. Return the indenture agreement to me. One hand over the goods, and the other hand over the person. Deacon Jean said, then added, oh right, you have to return the limitless gold card that Mu Ling cheated me out of. Han Yunxi frowned. Deacon Jean, I heard that you wanted to give the entire East Valley Bank to Ningqing in exchange for an indenture agreement. Ningqing didn't agree to it. Heh, so that girl Mu Ling is still very valuable. Deacon Jean smiled faintly. Han Yunxi also smiled. No matter how valuable that girl Ling is, she's not as valuable as you, Deacon Jean. How about this, you release Mu Ling and give me the East Valley Bank. I'll give the order that your indenture agreement is void. As for whatever agreement you have with Ningqing, it'll also be void. How about it? When these words were spoken, not to mention Deacon Jean, even the fifth elder was stunned. If this was not an exorbitant demand, what was it? Where did her confidence come from? Chapter 908. Mu Linger was in Deacon Jin's hands. Where did Han Yunxi get the confidence to make such harsh demands? Deacon Jin chuckled and said mockingly, Your Royal Highness, you really know how to do business. Han Yunqi sighed helplessly. If I knew how to do business, I wouldn't make such a losing deal with you. I'm also doing this for Ning Chang's sake. Fifth Elder was already stunned. Deacon Jean couldn't help but be angry. How was Han Yunqi asking for an exorbitant price? She was simply insulting him. Your Royal Highness, what qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? Deacon Jean pulled a long face. Your indenture contract, of course. Han Yunqi looked at him blankly. Deacon Jean, could it be that you're not satisfied with this princess's conditions? Fifth Elder couldn't figure out if Her Royal Highness was pretending to be stupid or if she really didn't understand the situation. Deacon Jean also didn't know if Han Yunqi was pretending to be stupid or if she really was stupid. He said bluntly, my indenture contract and 2 limitless gold cards. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it. As soon as he said this, Fifth Elder sucked in a cold breath. Her Royal Highness was asking for an exorbitant price, but this Deacon Jean wasn't inferior either. Han Yunqi frowned and looked at Deacon Jean incredulously. Deacon Jean was indifferent and didn't budge an inch. Uncle Qing wanted him to extort more than just 2 limitless gold cards. Deacon Jean felt that his conditions were quite generous. Although he wanted 2 limitless gold cards, in reality, he only earned 1. The one in Mu Linger's hands originally belonged to him. The room was silent. Deacon Jean and Han Yunqi's eyes met, silently competing with each other. The atmosphere gradually became tense. Deacon Jean, what if I say I can't do it? Han Yunqi spoke first. Then I'm sorry, I can't fulfill your request. Please leave. Deacon Jean said coldly. Han Yunqi nodded and smiled. Okay. Then I'll change my condition. I'd like to hear the details. Deacon Jean still gave Han Yunqi a chance. Cooperating with Han Yunqi was much easier than cooperating with Uncle Qing. Then listen carefully. I'll only say it once. Han Yunqi became serious. I'm all ears, Deacon Jean said. Immediately hand over Mu Linger and make an inventory of all the accounts of the East Valley Private Bank. Hand them over to Fifth Elder, and this princess will spare your life. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. When Han Yunqi said this, Deacon Jean and Fifth Elder were stunned. Han Yunqi continued expressionlessly, as for your slave contract, I'm very sorry, but you won't have any bargaining chips to redeem it in this lifetime. Suddenly, Deacon Jean jumped up from his seat and said angrily, Han Yunqi, what nonsense are you talking about? If you think this princess is talking in her sleep, you don't have to take it seriously. After Han Yunqi finished speaking, she turned to look at Fifth Elder. Let's go. Fifth Elder finally returned to his senses and hurriedly came over to push the wheelchair. Deacon Jean was about to stop him when he suddenly felt some pain in his calf. Alarmed, he touched the area of pain and found a golden needle. Deacon Jean was in disbelief. He never thought that Han Yunqi would be so despicable. If he had known that she would use such a despicable method, he definitely would have taken precautions. He understood that this woman didn't know any martial arts and only knew how to use hidden weapons to poison people. Her hidden weapons were hidden in her sleeves. Han Yunqi, you actually used poison. You're despicable. Deacon Jean angrily rebuked. Despicable. Han Yunqi's lips curled into a cold smile. She ignored him and was pushed out of the door by Fifth Elder. The pain in his calf became more and more severe. Deacon Jean angrily warned, Han Yunqi, if I don't see the sun tomorrow, Mu Linger won't see the sun tomorrow either. Finally, the anger that Han Yunqi had been suppressing in her heart all this time suddenly erupted. She said coldly, why don't you try? Don't forget that this is the three-way black market. As soon as she finished speaking, a group of guards suddenly rushed in from outside and surrounded Deacon Jean. "Go in and search," Han Yunxi said coldly. Deacon Jean wanted to stop them, but Han Yunxi shot out several poisonous needles. Although Deacon Jean could withstand them, he calmed down and said unhappily, "Han Yunxi, I can agree to your conditions. Everything can be discussed in detail." It had to be said that Uncle Cheng's instigation had made him realize that Mu Linger was an excellent bargaining chip, but Han Yunxi's poisonous needles had utterly defeated him. Myriad Merchant Hall, Golden Wing Hall, and East Origin Hall were all part of the three-way black market. Although a mere East Valley bank was rich and imposing, it still couldn't be ranked. What's more, he was still a slave of Myriad Merchant Hall. Even if he won today, Han Yunxi deliberately made things difficult for him, so he wouldn't have a good life. Even if he had Mu Linger in his hands, did he really want to fight Han Yunxi to the point of losing his life? He wasn't clear about the relationship between Han Yunxi and Mu Linger, but judging from Han Yunxi's vicious, despicable, and shameless behavior, she might really sacrifice Mu Linger in exchange for the East Valley Bank. Deacon Jean didn't want to die in a foreign land at such a young age before he had even obtained his freedom. Han Yunxi waved a hand, indicating for the guards to withdraw. Actually, these were only her personal guards who'd accompanied her on this trip. They hadn't come prepared. Originally, she was only curious as to why Ning Qing would release Mu Linger to the East Valley Bank, so she personally came to test Deacon Jean. She didn't expect Deacon Jean to be someone who refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. She sneered in her heart. When the chips were equal, she had never lost any negotiation except for that one time when she faced Bai Yanqing. Actually, everyone's chips were equal. As long as Deacon Jean insisted on not releasing her and used Mu Linger to threaten her, she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. She should be thankful that Deacon Jean wasn't that sly old fox Bai Yanqing after all. Once the guards withdrew, Han Yunxi coldly asked, "Where is she?" If she wanted to discuss in detail, she had to first see Mu Linger and confirm that she was fine. From her point of view, Deacon Jean wasn't a good person. If he dared to hurt Linger in the slightest, she would definitely make his legs suffer so much that he wished he was dead. "Help me detoxify the poison first," Deacon Jean requested. Han Yunxi narrowed her eyes. "Are you sure you still want to talk nonsense with me?" Han Yunxi, there should be a limit to how much you can take advantage of a burning house. You're a woman, so don't use such despicable methods. Deacon Jean was genuinely dissatisfied with being tricked and casually complained. Han Yunxi originally didn't want to waste her breath, but when she heard this, she was enraged. She angrily retorted, "Deacon Jean, explain to me clearly. How am I taking advantage of a burning house? You were the one who directly suggested exchanging the East Valley Bank for your indenture agreement. Ning Qing thought it was too little, so I added an additional condition for you to release Mu Linger. How is that not a limit?" Han Yunxi sneered. "Also, what do you mean by despicable? You kidnapped my little sister, and I asked you to release her, but you refused to release her. If you want to talk about despicable, then you're the one who's despicable first. You were poisoned by me, but that's because you're fine. Deacon Jean, you're a dignified man, yet you're holding a little girl hostage, and you're still talking to me about whether you're despicable or not. Is there any meaning to this? I haven't even scolded you, yet you're scolding me. Do you have any shame?" Deacon Jean was speechless, while Fifth Elder's heartbeat sped up. Both of them had long heard of this woman's reputation, but this was their first time seeing her in person. It really was an eye-opener. "Deacon Jean, I'm telling you one last time. Hand over Mu Linger, settle the accounts of the East Valley Bank, and hand them over to Fifth Elder. Then I'll give you the antidote. As for your indenture agreement, don't even think about it. We have nothing to discuss." Han Yunshi kindly reminded him again. There's still more than 2 hours before daybreak. Even if Deacon Jean was 100 times unwilling, he still had to admit defeat. Someone, bring Mu Linger over. He reluctantly ordered. Very quickly, Mu Linger was brought over by an attendant. Han Yunshi originally thought that Mu Linger would have a pitiful look on her face, but who knew that this lass would be so well? She couldn't tell that she had been kidnapped at all. The moment Mu Linger saw Han Yunshi, her large, bright eyes were like searchlights, especially bright. However, the next moment, she realized that Han Yunshi was sitting in a wheelchair. Han Yunshi, what happened to you? She cried out in alarm and rushed over. I'm fine. Han Yunshi didn't want to talk too much here. Mu Linger hurriedly squatted down and carefully examined her legs. She only needed to smell the medicine that Han Yunshi had applied to know that Han Yunshi's legs were broken. What happened? Who did it? Mu Linger asked angrily. Han Yunshi frowned as she looked at her. Her heart felt warm. It was rare for this lass to be so concerned about her. It's fine. Let's talk about it when we get back, she said indifferently. Fifth Elder wanted to push Han Yunshi, but Mu Linger beat him to it. She was full of questions, but she also knew that this wasn't the place to talk. Where's my antidote? Deacon Jean couldn't help but remind her. Settle the accounts and bring it over to Fifth Elder. I'll give it to you. Han Yunshi didn't even turn her head. Deacon Jean clenched his fists and stood there for a long time. Just as Han Yunshi was about to leave, he said coldly, Han Yunshi, don't you want to know why Ningqing handed this lass over to me? Han Yunshi finally turned her head. Then tell me. Deacon Jean was about to state his conditions when Han Yunshi said, if you don't tell me now, I'll immediately go back and find your indenture contract and sell it to Gu. Deacon Jean had fought with Gu in the casino. If his indenture contract fell into Gu's hands, would he still have a good life? Deacon Jean gnashed his teeth in hatred and had the urge to bite someone. Han Yunshi turned her head. Linger, let's go. Ningqing has designs on Medicine City's Mu family. Han Yunshi, don't think too much. Ningqing isn't here, so you may not have full authority over the D clan. Deacon Jean finished speaking and turned to enter the room. Mu Linger narrowed her eyes. Belatedly, she realized that Deacon Jean had lied to her. He even said that he couldn't take her out of three-way black market, but he could take her to East Valley Private Bank and guarantee her safety. So it was all a lie. She had thought that he was quite kind these past few days and even wondered if she should return that limitless gold card to him. She didn't expect him to be jackals of the same lair as Ningqing. Too much. Mu Linger suddenly rushed over to the guest hall. Deacon Jin's back was facing outside. He was gloomy and was about to turn around when Mu Linger was already behind him. She suddenly kicked his butt. Deacon Jean didn't expect Mu Linger to return. He stumbled forward 2 steps and almost fell. Despicable, shameless liar. Just you wait, I'll make you pay the price. Mu Linger cursed angrily and turned to run. Deacon Jean hugged his butt and turned back to look. His face was completely black. Chapter 909. When Mu Linger ran back, Fifth Elder was persuading Han Yunshi. Princess, don't listen to his instigation. Fifth Elder, since it was Deacon Jean who instigated it, then don't mention this matter again when we return, Han Yunshi instructed calmly. Mu Linger didn't quite understand and didn't dare to ask on the spot. After returning to Myriad Merchant Hall and Fifth Elder left, Mu Linger hurriedly told her about how Ningqing had forged the secret letter and how he had used Deacon Jean to trap Gu. Han Yunshi already knew what was going on and only nodded. Han Yunshi, did Ningqing capture Bai Yanqing? Where is he? You mustn't let Ningqing off. That guy is too evil. Everyone in the world thinks that he's the most loyal to Western Qin. I didn't expect him to do such a thing. Han Yunxi, why are you here? How did your leg get injured? Han Yunxi, Ningqing, Han Yunxi interrupted Mu Ling and told her about the hostage situation. Mu Ling was stunned and looked at her in disbelief for a long time. Finally, she muttered, Han Yunxi, you're really daring. Do you really love Long Fei Yi that much? If it wasn't for deep love, how could she give in when it came to national enmity? How could she be willing to give each other a chance? Han Yunxi didn't say anything. She thought to herself that even if she hadn't transmigrated, even if she was a real Western Qin princess, she would still love Long Fei Yi and would still be so brave. Mu Ling was surprised and suddenly felt sad. She thought that if Qi brother knew the truth, he would definitely be very sad. How much did she love Qi brother to feel sad for him? Ling, I've sent people to Black Tower to find Gu. Don't run around before he comes back. Be careful, Han Yunxi instructed seriously. Okay. Mu Ling nodded. She stood for a while. She had so many things to say, but she didn't know how to say them. The two of them were silent. She felt awkward and said, Han Yunxi, it's late. I'll help you wash up and change your medicine. You should sleep early. Qi brother might be back when we wake up. Han Yunxi was wondering when Mu Linger cut her off. She immediately refused. No need, I have servant girls in my rooms. I still have something to do and I won't sleep so early. You should go and rest first. Han Yunxi wanted to visit Tangli alone. In about 2 hours, Deacon Jean should deliver the East Valley Bank's account book. She couldn't relax until she saw the account book. Although the East Valley Bank's wealth couldn't compare to the D clans, it couldn't be underestimated. With this sum of money, Myriad Merchant Hall would have more confidence in dealing with the gambling house and the auction house. She thought that after this sum of money entered the account book, the other elders of Myriad Merchant Hall would more or less change their views of her. Only when the elders changed their views of her would she be able to start meddling in the gambling house and the auction house. Her agreement with Long Fei Yi was only 10 days. On the first day, she coincidentally took over the East Valley Bank. Han Yunxi began to suspect that perhaps she and Long Fei Yi wouldn't have to be apart for 10 days. If it were any other day, Mu Ling would definitely find an excuse to pester Han Yunxi. However, she still had an important matter to attend to tonight. She would soon bid farewell to Han Yunxi. Mu Ling didn't return to her room to rest. Instead, she went straight to East Origin Hall's auction house. A limitless gold card didn't have an upper limit, but it didn't mean that it didn't have an expiration date. When the card holder lost everything and couldn't pay off the debt, the limitless gold card would be cancelled by the bank. Mu Ling wanted to spend money like dirt before Deacon Jean lost everything. She wanted to let him have a taste of his own medicine. How dare he join forces with Ningqing to put her under house arrest? While Mu Ling was spending money like crazy in East Origin Hall's auction house, Han Yunxi was already imprisoned in Tang Li's cell. Tang Li suspiciously sized up Han Yunxi, and didn't say anything for a long time. Han Yunxi allowed him to size her up. She calmly pushed the wheel of her cell towards Tang Li and said, "If you keep looking, I'll tell your brother." You. Tang Li licked his lips. After a while, he asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with your leg?" "It's broken. It's almost healed." Han Yunxi was still quite comforted. At least the first thing Tang Li said when he saw her was to ask about her leg. Tang Li said, "Oh." After a moment of silence, he said, "Han Yunxi, don't you hate my brother?" The Grand Elder had told Ning Jing that when Ning Qing was in trouble, Tang Li was listening at the side. He couldn't be sure of anything else, but he was sure that his brother had very willfully taken this woman to his side to protect her. Why would I hate him? Han Yunqi rolled her eyes at him. You are the princess of Western Qin and he is the East Qin crown prince. Don't you hate him? Tang Li asked again. If he doesn't hate me, why would I hate him? Han Yunqi asked again. If he doesn't hate you, can you not hate him? Tang Li suddenly smiled. It's really simple. It's very simple. Han Yunqi asked back, do you think it's not simple? A bitter look flashed in Tang Li's eyes. He changed the topic. Han Yunqi, then why are you here now? How could the D clan let you come here? If I said it, would you believe me? Han Yunqi asked. If my brother believes you, how could I not believe you? Tang Li asked back. Han Yunqi also became serious. Tang Li, then do you hate me? Tang Li immediately shook his head, but he quickly nodded again. Only, when he saw Han Yunqi frown, he shook his head again. Han Yunqi pushed him, you're so hesitant. Are you still a man? Tang Li asked back, why would I hate you? My brother doesn't hate you, so it's useless for me to hate you. Han Yunqi laughed mockingly, I'm really blessed by Long Fei Yi. Tang Li rolled his eyes, where's my brother? He knows I'm here. Why didn't he come to save me? What's going on with you two? Han Yunqi still did not answer and asked back, Tang Li, do you hate Ning Jing? Unexpectedly, Tang Li suddenly became impatient. He waved his hand and motioned for Han Yunqi to leave. Don't beat around the bush with me. If you don't let me go, then leave. Please help me pass a message to my brother and ask him to quickly come and get me out. Han Yunqi was about to speak when Tang Li stopped her. I'm telling you, next time you come here, don't mention the two words Ning Jing to me. Otherwise, don't come here. Han Yunqi's eyes flashed with suspicion, and she said lightly, Tang Li, you want to be alone, don't you? I don't. Tang Li suddenly became angry and denied it angrily. Han Yunqi was stunned at first, then she burst out laughing. She was puzzled. Tang Li's attitude just now showed that he did not have any deep hatred for her. Why would Tang Li resent Ning Jing, the daughter of the D clan, when she was a Western Qin princess? She was not sure about other things, but she was very sure that the hatred of the Eastern and Western Qin family was not that strong in Tang Li's heart. Otherwise, Tang Li would not have been so talkative with her after knowing her background. As long as Tang Li did not reject Ning Jing's background, then Ning Jing could still be fought for, right? Although Ning Jing had told her not to mention their relationship in front of Tang Li, Han Yunqi still could not help it. She could not bear to see a stubborn woman like Ning Jing hiding her love and fighting alone. Love was a very heavy thing, and a person often could not bear it. Seeing Han Yunqi smile, Tang Li flew into a rage out of humiliation. Han Yunqi, are you leaving or not? You don't want to be alone. Won't you be bored if I leave? This prison cell is too quiet. Won't you be bored? Han Yunqi asked with a smile. Tang Li was furious and said angrily, go away. I want to be alone. You want to be alone? Han Yunqi played dumb and asked curiously, Jing Jing. Finally, Tang Li flew into a rage and did not answer Han Yunqi anymore. Instead, he pushed her out of the prison cell and slammed the door shut. He wanted to be alone. Seriously, enough. Han Yunqi was about to go back in when she saw the prison guard running over. Princess, Fifth Elder is waiting outside. He said that he has an urgent matter and wants to see you, the prison guard hurriedly reported. Han Yunqi temporarily ignored Tang Li and hurriedly went out. She saw Fifth Elder holding a bunch of keys in both hands and waiting respectfully outside the door. Your Highness, all the accounts of East Valley Private Bank have been sorted out and handed over to this subordinate. This is the key to East Valley Private Bank's treasury. East Valley Private Bank has not raised any debts or expanded into other businesses. As of tonight, the total amount of debt that has been loaned out is 56,330,000 taels, Fifth Elder reported truthfully. Han Yunxi sighed with emotion. The most profitable business in the world was indeed the business of making money. Although they had only lent out 56,330,000 taels, the interest of 56,330,000 taels was calculated daily, and the interest was extremely high. Where's Deacon Jean? Han Yunxi asked. These were sent over by him. He didn't come, Fifth Elder replied. Was it inconvenient for him to come over because of his leg injury, or was he afraid that seeing her would make him even more depressed? Han Yunxi very faithfully took out the antidote and handed it to Fifth Elder. She instructed, tomorrow at noon, summon First Elder and the others. I'll have a meal with everyone and learn more about the casino and the auction house. Fifth Elder respectfully accepted the order and left. Han Yunxi did not return to the prison. She thought that it was better not to force Tang Li and let him be alone. Ning Jing did not like her meddling, so she could not meddle too much. Seeing that it was almost dawn, Han Yunxi finally felt tired. She stretched and motioned for a maid to send her back to her room. She had to hurry up and tidy herself up and get some sleep. Otherwise, she would not have the energy to battle with the Elders' Council tomorrow. Han Yunxi was clearly very tired, but when she returned to her room, she could not fall asleep. She ordered a maid to prepare a hot soup. Since she could not sleep, she decided to take a bath and calm down to think about the casino and the auction house. What was the purpose of Golden Wing Palace? As far as she knew, Golden Wing Palace had been trading medicinal herbs all these years. There was not much conflict with Myriad Merchant Hall. Why did they have to compete with Myriad Merchant Hall so openly? After the maids prepared the hot soup, Han Yunxi dismissed them. She could already stand. If she did not care about the consequences, she could actually walk a few steps. It was not as inconvenient to move as before. She took off her clothes and carefully sat in the bathtub. Her feet were propped up on the edge of the tub so that they would not touch the water. The water was covered with pink Chinese roses. A faint fragrance rose in spirals with the steam and filled the air. Han Yunxi relaxed and did not have time to think about anything. But at this moment, a familiar voice came from behind her. Chapter 9-10. Han Yunxi, if I remember correctly, it's time for you to change your bandages today. Upon hearing this familiar voice, Han Yunxi hastily turned around to see Long Fei Yi standing behind her. She didn't know when, but his stern face was filled with displeasure. Han Yunxi looked at the door, then at the window. She discovered that the doors and windows were tightly shut. How did this guy get in? One had to know that as her inner strength increased, so did her acuity. She was no longer as oblivious to the slightest movements in her surroundings as she was before. When Long Fei Yi was imparting his inner strength to her, he was also constantly training her ability to detect danger in her surroundings. She learned this kind of task very quickly. When did you get in? Han Yunxi asked. Long Fei Yi moved a chair over, took out the ointment, and sat beside the bathtub. He pulled on her well-proportioned, fair, and beautiful legs. Han Yunxi originally wanted to ask more, but when his large, rough hand held her smooth and delicate calf, she unconsciously stiffened. She only felt a tremor rapidly travel from her calf to the top of her head, causing her scalp to tremble. They had even touched more intimately before, but even now, she still couldn't withstand his careless touch. Han Yunxi thought, Long Fei Yi was a poison, an incurable poison. Just like the perplexing butterfly illusion. She had it, but she couldn't break it. She was already beyond cure. There was no saving her. Long Fei Yi lowered his head and lowered his eyes. With a serious expression, he helped her cut the gauze. Han Yunqi had questions to ask, but she couldn't bear to break his silence. However, Long Fei Yi quickly glanced over. If you're tired, then take a nap. I'll call you when I'm done. Han Yunqi's sleepiness had long been chased away by Long Fei Yi. She asked suspiciously, "You've been waiting for me for a long time, right?" The doors and windows were all fine. She hadn't heard any movement when she had just entered. The only possibility was that this guy had already snuck into her room and only came out now. Yes. Long Fei Yi admitted generously. You just. Han Yunqi was slightly angry. Why didn't you come out earlier? In other words, if he had come out earlier, she wouldn't have taken a bath. She would have seen everything. Han Yunqi said implicitly, but Long Fei Yi answered directly, I've already seen it. Han Yunqi didn't know how early Long Fei Yi was referring to. She knew that the earliest time they met was when they were at the hot spring pool near the battlefield. She didn't want to discuss this with Long Fei Yi at this time, so she immediately changed the topic. Aren't you going to see Chu Tianyin? Why haven't you left? I'm leaving tomorrow. I remembered that you didn't apply medicine on your leg, so I came over to take a look, Long Fei Yi replied. Oh. Han Yunqi glanced at him and was a little happy. I heard that you've taken over the Eastern Valley Bank. Long Fei Yi asked. You're well informed. Han Yunqi smiled helplessly. Presumably, there were still many people in Myriad Merchant Hall who didn't know about this. Do you know what Golden Wing Hall is trying to do? Han Yunqi asked. Do you want me to help you? Long Fei Yi asked. He could tell that if Han Yunqi wanted to control the D clan, she had to take over Myriad Merchant Hall first. Han Yunqi nodded without hesitation. If there was someone to help her, why wouldn't she? Pride and arrogance were unnecessary in front of Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi couldn't help but laugh. He thought that this woman would reject him without hesitation. Although he was laughing, Long Fei Yi still rejected her heartlessly. 10 days is the limit. I won't help you. He had already given in on this matter. How could he push Han Yunqi to the Western Qin camp? He couldn't do it. Stingy. Han Yunqi also laughed. Can you help with anything else? Long Fei Yi said seriously. Anything else? Han Yunqi quickly asked, what is it? Long Fei couldn't help but laugh out loud. I'll carry you up. Han Yunqi was stunned. Her face immediately reddened, and she couldn't speak for a long time. Long Fei Yi chuckled to himself. Although Han Yunqi declined again and again, Long Fei Yi still picked her up horizontally. Fortunately, she grabbed a bath towel to wrap around her body and cover her face. Long Fei Yi placed her on the bed. Han Yunqi quickly tidied herself up and wrapped herself in her nightgown. Long Fei Yi was well behaved. He didn't tease her anymore. Instead, he leaned against the bed and looked at her with a smile. Compared to her magnificent appearance, he preferred her helpless, panicked, and shy look. He was the only one who could see it. Han Yunqi glanced at Long Fei Yi, but her heart ached for him. She sat down on the bed and made room for him. It's almost dawn. Take a nap before you leave. She didn't know that he didn't plan to leave at all. She said seriously, you have to run around again tomorrow. Take the time to rest. Long Fei Yi lay down. Han Yunqi came over, held his arm, and snuggled up to him. Even she didn't know when she had become so dependent on this man. She thought that they would only see each other after 10 days. She didn't expect to be able to lean on him again after just one day. It was great. Originally, Long Fei had wanted to continue teaching Han Yunxi internal energy and even instruct her in acupuncture techniques. But when he saw her so lovey-dovey, he didn't bring up the subject of martial arts. He said calmly, "Go to sleep. I'll leave when it's dawn." Han Yunxi snuggled in his arms. Feeling his familiar scent, she felt especially satisfied and safe. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, she suddenly remembered something. She looked up abruptly. "Long Fei Yi, why do you think Tang Li hates Ning Jing so much?" "Maybe," Long Fei Yi said calmly. Tang Li had mentioned it to him when they were in Medical City. If he remembered correctly, it should be Ning Jing who hated Tang Li, you can tell too. Han Yunxi sat up excitedly. How could Long Fei Yi pay attention to this kind of thing? How could he tell? If he hadn't met Han Yunxi, he probably wouldn't have been able to handle his own relationship matters. Relationships were actually a kind of instinct. When you met the right person, this kind of instinct would be stimulated. If you didn't meet the right person, you probably wouldn't understand it for the rest of your life. Before Long Fei Yi could answer, Han Yunxi started to analyze seriously. Tang Li doesn't hate me at all. He has no reason to hate Ning Jing so much. He was drugged. Who wouldn't bear a grudge? Long Fei Yi retorted. Obviously, he didn't fully understand the hatred Han Yunxi mentioned. Han Yunxi misunderstood as well. If that's the case, then it's rather hateful. Han Yunxi muttered to herself. After a while, she said seriously, "Long Fei Yi, I keep feeling that Tang Li and Ning Jing are a little interested." This time, Long Fei Yi answered clearly, "Yes." "You think so too?" Han Yunxi was a little excited. "It's not what I think. Tang Li told me before," Long Fei Yi replied. Han Yunxi was shocked. "What did you say?" "Tang Li said that he likes Ning Jing. Unfortunately, Ning Jing still doesn't want to have children." Long Fei Yi was talking about Tang Li's original words in Medical City. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Han Yunxi was surprised and angry. She hurriedly wanted to get off the bed. "What are you doing? If you move your leg again, you won't be able to recover," Long Fei Yi reprimanded unhappily. "I'm going to find Ning Jing." No, I'm going to find Tang Li. I have something very important to tell him." Han Yunxi said and opened her arms, wanting Long Fei Yi to carry her down the bed. Long Fei Yi glanced at her unhappily. Han Yunxi became anxious and put her arms around his neck. "Long Fei Yi, this concerns your brother's marriage. Hurry up." Long Fei Yi almost took advantage of the situation and pushed her down, but he still carried her off the bed, put her in the wheelchair, and threw her clothes to change. Long Fei Yi, Ning Jing likes Tang Li. Ning Jing likes Tang Li. Han Yunxi completely ignored Long Fei Yi's dark face. She hurriedly put on her clothes and pushed the wheelchair out, leaving Long Fei Yi stunned. He had waited in the cell for a whole night, and this woman just left like that. However, for Tang Li's sake, Long Fei Yi could only let Han Yunxi go. Han Yunxi didn't know why she was so excited. She asked the maid to push her out. In the hazy sky, she left behind a figure that was like the wind. When Han Yunxi arrived at the prison, Tang Li was lying on a pile of straw and staring at the skylight in a daze. This was not the first time that he couldn't sleep until dawn. After being questioned by Han Yunxi, he couldn't sleep even more. When Han Yunxi was still far away, Tang Li heard the noise. He didn't expect Han Yunxi to come over. He only thought that it was the elders who secretly came to punish him. So, when Han Yunxi had already ordered someone to open the prison door and dismissed the maid, Tang Li still didn't look back. Han Yunxi looked at Tang Li's thin figure and couldn't help but laugh. "Io, are you so haggard because of Yiling?" Tang Li immediately turned around and looked at her. He was very surprised. "It's you. Tang Li, is this the kind of person who wants to be alone?" Han Yunxi said with a smile. Tang Li rolled his eyes at her and turned back to face the wall. He closed his eyes and ignored her. "How does it feel to want to be alone?" Han Yunxi pushed the wheelchair into the prison. Tang Li couldn't be provoked, and he couldn't stand Han Yunxi using the word quiet to provoke him. He immediately stood up. "I'll say it for the last time. I want to be alone." "Do you want to be alone?" he explained impatiently. "An explanation is a cover-up," Han Yunxi said seriously. Before Tang Li could refute, she continued seriously, "A cover-up is definitely interesting." "Han Yunxi, what do you want? It's not even dawn yet. Aren't you bored? If you're bored, go find my brother if you can." Tang Li couldn't bear it anymore. Han Yunxi smiled but didn't say anything. Tang Li said again, "Han Yunxi, let me tell you. If it weren't for my brother, I would have thrown you out long ago. What do you want? If you have something to say, say it quickly." He had promised Long Fei Yi that if Han Yunxi didn't hate Long Fei Yi, he would help control the Tang sect's power. He really didn't expect Han Yunxi to be so free and easy. He also didn't expect Han Yunxi to be so capable. She could mix around with Long Fei Yi and openly come to the D clan's important place, Myriad Merchant Hall. Why was it so easy for this woman to do these things? Why was it so difficult for him and Ning Jing? Han Yunxi cleared her throat and said seriously, "All right, since you've already chased me out, I'll be straightforward. Tang Li, I'm here to tell you a secret. Do you want to hear it?" A trace of suspicion flitted across Tang Li's eyes, but he looked indifferent. "Say it or not." Ning Jing's secret, Han Yunxi tempted. Chapter 9-11. The word Ning Jing was like a curse to Tang Li, especially when it came from Han Yunxi's mouth. However, Tang Li did not get a headache when he heard it. Instead, his heart ached. It throbbed painfully and was extremely uncomfortable, but he had no choice but to listen to it. He could not ignore it. Tang Li pretended to cough lightly and replied impatiently, "Han Yunxi, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't hold it in. I have a condition." Han Yunxi said with a chuckle. "No way." Tang Li turned his head away. His thin and handsome face was full of arrogance. "Call me sister-in-law, and I'll tell you. It's a big secret." Han Yunxi continued to tempt him. Tang Li had thought that Han Yunxi would come up with some tricks. He did not expect it to be so simple. However, even if it was that simple, he could not do it. Tang Li pursed his lips and did not say anything. Han Yunxi was full of interest and waited for him patiently. Their eyes met for a while. Tang Li finally awkwardly avoided Han Yunxi's gaze. "Are you going to call me that?" Han Yunxi asked. Tang Li did not say anything, nor did he refuse. Han Yunxi's lips curled into a contemptuous smile. "If you don't want to call me that, then so be it. Goodbye." She pushed the wheel and prepared to leave, but Tang Li immediately cried out, "Wait a minute." Han Yunxi was overjoyed. She stopped and waited. However, Tang Li said, "Han Yunxi, if it's about Ning Jing, I'll have to trouble you to stop bothering me." Han Yunxi felt stifled. She immediately turned around and scolded, "Tang Li, are you still a man? You don't even dare to say that you like a woman. Are you a coward? Let me tell you, Ning Jing has agreed to cooperate with me." She will help me take control of Myriad Merchant Hall and facilitate the cooperation between the D clan and the Long Fei Yi. We will definitely work together to deal with Bai Yanqing and find out the true reason behind the civil war in the Great Qin Empire. As Han Yunqi spoke, she turned around and approached Tang Li. Do you know why Ning Jing did this? Because like me, she hoped that the civil war back then was a misunderstanding. She hoped that there was no hatred between East and West Qin. Because she wants to fight for a chance to love you. Tang Li was dumbfounded. Han Yunqi continued scolding, she's a woman. She has a sense of shame and self-respect. It's understandable that she doesn't dare to say that she likes you. But you're a man, don't you even have this bit of courage? If you like someone, will it kill you to say it out loud? The secret I want to tell you is that Ning Jing loves you very, very much. Han Yunqi said loudly. Tang Li was still stunned and didn't say anything for a long time. If Han Yunqi's leg wasn't injured, she would definitely have kicked him hard. If you don't want to know this secret, then pretend that I didn't say anything. Goodbye. Han Yunqi was really about to leave when Tang Li suddenly shouted, sister-in-law. Han Yunqi was about to go deaf from all the shouting. Fortunately, she had previously informed Ning Jing to bribe the jailers in the cell. When she came over, the jailers all retreated far away. Otherwise, Tang Li's sister-in-law would definitely betray all of them. Han Yunqi covered her painful ears and ignored him. Tang Li was extremely agitated and quickly pulled her wheelchair. Sister-in-law, what did you just say? Han Yunqi looked up at him. Tang Li, what did you call me? Tang Li was about to cry. Sister-in-law, I'm begging you. Have mercy on me. Ning Jing, what did she say? Han Yunqi was amused, angry and distressed. Ning Jing loves you. She loves you very, very much. She told sister-in-law herself. Tang Li was really about to cry. His eyes were filled with tears. Really? Han Yunqi smiled helplessly. Sister-in-law would cheat anyone but you. It's true. I want to see her. Tang Li rushed out of the door like a madman. Han Yunqi let him do as he pleased. Tang Li really did run out of the cell. However, once he reached the dungeon door, he was stopped by a group of archers. He could only retreat. At this moment, he realized that although Han Yunqi could walk freely in Myriad Merchant Hall, she didn't have complete control over it. The group of archers at the door was not only to prevent him from escaping, but also to prevent Han Yunqi from secretly taking him away. You can't go out, but Ning Jing can come in. I don't know if she's willing to see you. Han Yunqi was telling the truth. Sister-in-law, tell Ning Jing, tell her. Tang Li thought for a moment. Tell her that the pear blossom in the storm has no heart, but I have a heart. Tell her to come here. I have something to tell her. All right, I'll think about it, Han Yunqi said mildly. Sister-in-law. Tang Li begged. Han Yunqi couldn't help but laugh. It had been a long time since she heard him call her sister-in-law in such a pleading tone. Tang Li, leave this to sister-in-law. Even if I have to lie to her, I'll help you trick her here. If you have anything to say, you can tell her yourself, Han Yunqi said seriously. Hurry, hurry. Tang Li couldn't wait. Han Yunqi left immediately. By the time she reached the outside of the prison, it was already dawn. Fifth Elder had sent people to look for her everywhere, and they just happened to find her here. Your Highness, the elders are already waiting in the main hall, the maidservant answered truthfully. So early. Han Yunqi was suspicious. She had no idea that last night, Fifth Elder had told the other elders about Han Yunqi swallowing up the East Valley Private Bank. All of them were stunned by the news, especially the head elder, who had called for a meeting early in the morning to discuss the matter. Myriad Merchant Hall was the D clan's source of wealth, so it was essentially a place where money spoke. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid that this disaster couldn't be saved. Ning Jing covered her mouth with one hand and grabbed her arm tightly with the other. Her fingernails tore through her clothes and pierced into her flesh. She tightened her grip and didn't let go. She was even more scared than Mu Ling. Mu Ling was so scared that she didn't even notice the pain in her arm. She said anxiously, "Ning Jing, calm down. You don't have time. Call the maidservant to send you into the room. I'll go get the medicine immediately. Believe me, I can. I can concoct a good medicine that will protect your child." Mu Ling didn't have any confidence at all. Without diagnosing the specific situation, how could she prescribe the right medicine? How could she concoct the medicine? However, as a pharmacist, no matter how flustered she was, she still had the most basic professionalism. She had to try her best to calm the patient down. A good mood was a good medicine. Mu Ling, send me in. Don't let anyone know that I'm pregnant, including the servants. Ning Jing said coldly. Mu Ling, was shocked and blurted out, "You're pregnant with Tang Li's child." When Mu Ling said this, she felt that she was stupid. If she wasn't pregnant with Tang Li's child, why would Ning Jing be so secretive? "Shut your mouth." Ning Jing rebuked angrily. Mu Ling didn't dare to delay and said in a low voice, "Ning Jing, you better not stand up. Otherwise, the child will be in danger. Bear with it, I'll carry you in." Mu Ling wasn't even as tall as Ning Jing, and she was much thinner than Ning Jing. How could she carry Ning Jing? However, this little girl's explosive strength was astonishing. She gritted her teeth and carried Ning Jing into the room, step by step, and laid her flat on the bed. After she carefully checked Ning Jing's pulse, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Ning Jing, the child can be saved. You must lie down. I'll go find the doctor outside and prescribe some medicine to prevent miscarriage." Judging from Ning Jing's pulse, she judged that it was not hopeless. However, she was not a doctor in this field, so she didn't dare to be careless. Ning Jing's tense nerves finally relaxed a little. She didn't dare to move, let alone get up. After Mu Ling poured some water for her, she immediately went to find the doctor and get the medicine. However, just as she reached the door, she saw Han Yunxi being pushed over by a maidservant. Han Yunxi was staring at the pool of blood on the ground with a suspicious look on her face. When she saw Mu Ling, she was even more puzzled. "Ling, why are you here? Why are you in such a hurry?" When the overly nervous Mu Ling saw her savior, she almost burst into tears. She gave Han Yunxi a look with teary eyes. Han Yunxi immediately understood and dismissed the maidservant. Mu Ling rushed over, her voice choked with sobs. "Sister, I'm in trouble. Jing almost had a miscarriage. I bumped into her. I'll go find the doctor and get the medicine right away. Help me look after her. Don't let anything happen to her." Han Yunxi was stunned. "Miscarriage?" Mu Ling nodded vigorously. She finally couldn't hold back her tears. "I didn't do it on purpose." Chapter 9:12. As soon as Han Yunxi heard the word miscarriage and looked at the pool of blood on the ground, she immediately shouted, "Don't cry. Take me in, hurry up." Mu Ling was frightened. I have to go, hurry up." Han Yunxi shouted angrily. Mu Ling didn't have time to explain and hurriedly pushed Han Yunxi in. Ning Jing didn't expect Han Yunxi to come over. She asked Mu Ling angrily, "Where's the medicine? Where's the doctor?" Mu Ling was yelled at by these two women. She held back her tears and said, "Sister, I've checked her pulse. Ning Jing's baby can be saved. She urgently needs to take the medicine to prevent miscarriage. I said to find a doctor to be on the safe side." "What kind of medicine do you need?" Han Yunxi asked. Mu Ling quickly listed a few medicinal herbs. Han Yunxi directly took them out from her medical bag. To be exact, she took them out from the detoxification system. The medicinal herbs that Mu Ling listed were very common. She still had them in stock in her detoxification system. They were just used to make antidotes. She didn't expect that there would be a time when she would use them to make medicine to prevent miscarriage. Mu Ling and Ning Jing were very curious, but they didn't have time to ask. After Mu Ling confirmed that the medicinal herbs were correct, she immediately went to make the medicine herself. After Han Yunxi confirmed that Ning Jing was fine for the time being, she hurriedly went out to get rid of the pool of blood in the courtyard. After she came back, Ning Jing stared at the ceiling in a daze. She didn't know what to think. Han Yunxi sighed. She didn't know how she would tell Tang Li if something happened to Ning Jing today. Han Yunxi sat for a long time without saying anything. Ning Jing opened her eyes and looked over. Han Yunxi glanced at her and said nothing. "Han Yunxi, you must think I'm ridiculous, right?" Ning Jing asked with a bitter smile. Han Yunxi suddenly said coldly, "You're despicable. How could you hide such a big thing from Tang Li?" Ning Jing's eyes flashed with bitterness. She didn't want to explain anything. She turned her head and didn't say anything. Han Yunxi was also silent. Very soon, there were many things that needed to be told to her personally by Tang Li. After Mu Ling brought the decoction, Han Yunxi went out to find a doctor. When she brought the doctor over, Ning Jing had already taken the medicine and fallen asleep. The doctor examined her, looked at Mu Linger's prescription, and added some medicine. He said that although the child was saved, Ning Jing had to stay in bed for a month. After sending the doctor away, Mu Linger finally broke down and cried softly. "Sister, I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't do it on purpose." Han Yunxi then realized that Mu Linger had called her sister. Looking at Mu Linger's teary eyes, Han Yunxi felt helpless. "What's the use of apologizing to me? Sister, boo-hoo." Mu Linger cried even louder. Han Yunxi immediately muffled her mouth. "Can't you be quiet? Ning Jing needs to rest." Mu Linger didn't dare to make a sound. She widened her teary eyes and looked pitiful. She didn't even realize that she had called Han Yunxi sister several times. Han Yunxi asked calmly, "What are you doing here?" Mu Linger then remembered something else. "Sister, I got into trouble." Han Yunxi was shocked. "What is it?" "I was hunted down by Deacon Jean," Mu Linger said timidly. Han Yunxi was even more shocked. What exactly happened? Only then did Mu Linger tell him the whole story. Last night, she had gone to East Origin Hall's auction house to squander money. In one night, she'd spent 300 to 200 million taels to buy up all the items from last night's auction. She had just arrived at Myriad Merchant Hall's entrance this morning when she bumped into Deacon Jean. Deacon Jean wanted to kill her. Fortunately, she reacted quickly and escaped in time. Deacon Jean didn't dare to chase after her. It turned out that Deacon Jean had handed over the East Valley Private Bank to Fifth Elder last night and was penniless. The news had only spread this morning and the private bank didn't have time to block his limitless gold card. Simply put, because of her extravagant spending last night, the originally penniless Deacon Jean now owed a debt of more than 200 million. 200 million was just a night's worth of gambling for the Deacon Jean of the past. But to the current Deacon Jean, it was an astronomical figure. Even if he wanted to pay with his life still belonged to Myriad Merchant Hall. Han Yunxi was originally a little angry, but when she heard Mu Linger's explanation, she almost laughed out loud. She didn't expect Mu Linger to be so good at cheating others. No wonder Deacon Jean wanted to kill her. Deacon Jean owes a buttload of debt. Han Yunxi muttered to herself, seeming to have thought of something. Sister, I didn't expect things to blow up so big. Mu Linger had only wanted to take revenge on Deacon Jean. She didn't expect to cause Deacon Jean so much trouble. Although a private bank that issued limitless gold cards wasn't like an underground bank like the East Valley Private Bank, their methods of forcing people to repay their debts were still very frightening. From now on, Deacon Jin's days wouldn't be easy. Sister, why don't I sell off the things I bid for at a cheap price? Let him repay as much as he can. Mu Linger was ultimately kind-hearted. No need. Let him be anxious for a few days. Han Yunxi said calmly. She already had a plan in mind. Deacon Jean was from the Wintercrow tribe and should know the Wintercrow language. Perhaps this guy would be the key to her turning the tables in Myriad Merchant Hall. Linger, stay here and take care of Ning Jing. You must keep this a secret, understand? Otherwise, Ning Jing will never forgive you, Han Yunxi said seriously. Mu Linger nodded vigorously. Only then did Han Yunxi leave, reassured. She pondered how to get Tang Li out of the prison cell to take a look at Ning Jing as she walked towards the conference hall. The elders in the conference hall were already impatient from waiting. Uncle Qing was also present. He hadn't even found Deacon Jin's indenture contract before Han Yunxi beat him to it. He had to admit that he admired this woman's ability. It was a pity that this woman's heart was with Long Fei Yi. Otherwise, she would definitely be able to lead the D clan in their great cause of reviving Western Qin. Although Uncle Qing didn't gain any benefits from the Deacon Jin incident, he still concealed himself without batting an eyelid. He knew that Han Yunxi wouldn't be able to settle the disturbance at the auction and casino no matter what. As soon as Han Yunxi arrived, all of the elders rose to their feet. After making their salutations, the head elder said, "Someone come, go see if Miss Jing's almost here. Tell her that the princess is already waiting." "No need. I sent her to the casino," Han Yunxi said calmly. First elder wanted to ask more, but Han Yunxi beat him to it. "First elder, tell us about the situation at the auction." "Yes." First elder stood up and reported the situation in detail. The disturbance at the auction stemmed from a fake item. The item was indeed fake, but it wasn't forged by the auction. Instead, a mole had planted the fake item and exchanged it for the real item. The business of the auction house was most afraid of fake goods. The customers took advantage of this and demanded a high compensation. "Then compensate them. Give them as much as they want," Han Yunxi said. "We've already promised to compensate them tenfold, but that customer not only wants tenfold compensation, he also wants the real item." First elder was in a difficult position. "Princess, that mole still hasn't shown himself, and the whereabouts of the real item are unknown. What are the origins of this guest?" Han Yunxi asked. "He's a wealthy merchant from Western Zhou who trades in tea leaves," First elder replied. "He has a group of companions who block the entrance of the auction every day. If they don't leave, the auction will never be able to open again." Han Yunxi nodded and asked, "What's the situation at the casino?" "Uncle Qing is handling everything at the casino." As soon as First elder finished speaking, Uncle Qing hurriedly stepped forward and reported the situation at the casino. The situation at the casino was 100 times worse than at the auction. Ever since someone exposed the casino's dealer for cheating, the gamblers occupied the casino and refused to leave. Several gamblers demanded the casino compensate them for the money they lost over the past 3 years, plus interest. This was still considered a small matter. A few gamblers didn't want any compensation at all. Last night, they brought a group of servants to smash up the casino, declaring that they would smash it up for as long as Myriad Merchant Hall's casino was open. Servants? Han Yunxi snorted. A group of servants can smash up the casino. Are the guards useless? Are they raised for nothing? Uncle Qing hurriedly explained, Your Highness, at this juncture, if we use force, we'll be even more in the wrong. That's why I didn't stop you. I've already punished the dealer, but the Golden Wing Palace has publicized all their tricks. Not to mention our casino, even East Origin Hall may not be able to continue operating. Other than those troublemaking gamblers, most of the gamblers in the black market are dead. A cold sneer flashed across Uncle Chang's eyes. He asked anxiously, Your Highness, the casino and auction are Myriad Merchant Hall's most profitable places. What should we do now? The military camp sent a letter the day before yesterday, asking Myriad Merchant Hall to transfer silver to prepare military supplies for the winter. Also, a few spies from the Northernly Chamber of Commerce have come asking for silver. Now that the Northernly Chamber of Commerce is electing a new president, we need a lot of silver to smooth things over. After Uncle Qing finished speaking, everyone fell silent. They all looked at Han Yunxi, waiting for her to come up with a plan. The Myriad Merchant Hall's Elders Guild had seen all kinds of storms, and they weren't to be trifled with. However, at this critical juncture, they all had to be cautious in the face of such a troublesome storm. No one dared to take the risk. After all, if this storm wasn't dealt with properly, Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income would be cut off, and the military supplies on the battlefield would be replenished. If it were any other time, they could still replenish their supplies. However, at this critical juncture, they needed to have enough funds to deal with a war that could break out at any time. Han Yunxi was silent for a long time, then finally made a shocking decision. She said, Pass down the order to close the casino. No. Uncle Cheng was the first to stand up. After that, other than the fifth elder, the other 4 elders also stood up. Although they didn't say anything, their thoughts were the same as Uncle Chang's. Then do you have a better idea? Han Yunxi retorted. Your Highness, please forgive this subordinate for speaking bluntly. Your idea can't be called an idea. Once the casino closes, we'll lose one of our sources of income. Now that we're short of silver everywhere, let's just say. Before Uncle Qing could finish, Han Yunxi cut him off coldly. Uncle Qing, I'm very sorry. The casino's source of income has already been cut off. It had to be said that Han Yunxi was speaking the truth. If the casino continued to operate, it wouldn't be able to make a profit. No one even gambles in East Origin Hall's casino, let alone here. Han Yunxi retorted, Won't it cost to continue operating? Have you calculated how much it costs to operate those large casinos for a day? Don't we have to pay for the servants, the dealers, and the venue? Even the lights inside cost money. The entire place was silent. No one could refute her words, but no one was convinced either. Even the fifth elder, who obeyed Han Yunxi's every order, couldn't bear to close the casino. Rather than wasting resources, why don't we take advantage of these opportunities before others discover them? Han Yunxi asked again. No one understood. Who knew that Han Yunxi would say, after closing the 3-way Black Markets casino, we'll open a few large casinos under our own names in the nearby county. Gambling is a thing that addicts can never get rid of. Chapter 9:13. Close down the 3-way Black Markets casino, conceal their identities outside the three-way black market, and open another casino. Han Yunxi's move was called "No Construction Without Destruction." Hearing Han Yunxi's explanation, everyone felt enlightened. This was a very simple method, nothing more than a little trick in the business world. But why couldn't their brains wrap around it? Why couldn't they figure it out? The three-way black market's casino had already been ruined by Golden Wing Palace. Even if they tried to salvage the situation, with Golden Wing Palace's attitude, they would definitely continue to look for trouble. Any business was afraid of being found trouble. Rather than wasting time and money here, they might as well change their position. Han Yunxi was right. People who were addicted to gambling would never be able to quit. In other words, they would never have to worry about not having business. Now that the three-way black market's casino was not trusted, those gamblers might be even more anxious than the casino owners, unable to find a suitable place to gamble. If they could seize the opportunity and find a suitable place to reopen the casino, it would definitely attract a lot of gamblers. This way, the casino's income would not be cut off. All the elders looked at each other. Although some of them had a grudge against Han Yunxi, they could not help but approve of her idea. Uncle Ching rubbed his hands and thought for a moment before asking seriously, "But Your Highness, now that the dealer's tricks have been exposed, how are we going to continue playing?" Han Yunxi bluntly reprimanded, "Uncle Ching, you're wrong. Any business must pay attention to the word credibility. Without credibility, no matter how big the business is, it will still be exaggerated. Thousand Gold Hall is an example." The moment she said this, First Elder hurriedly explained, "Your Highness, the dealer's rules are not only in our casino, all the casinos in the world are like this. If we don't do this, how are we going to make such a high profit?" Han Yunxi smiled. "Then let's do the opposite." First Elder wanted to explain, but Uncle Ching hurriedly said, "What brilliant idea does Your Highness have?" This subordinate is all ears. If casinos did not follow these unspoken rules, they would not be able to make such high profits. Without such high profits, they might as well do other business. Uncle Ching admired Han Yunxi's idea of opening another casino. He was worried that he couldn't refute her. Now, he found his weakness. He'd like to see what kind of brilliant moves Han Yunxi could come up with. Who knew that Han Yunxi would say something shocking again? She said, "We only provide the venue and services, not the host. If the gamblers wanted to play host and dared to play host, let them do it." The casino adopted a membership system, and the members had to go through a strict asset inspection. Those with a net worth of less than 300 million would be rejected. If the loser reneged on the bet, the casino would be responsible for collecting the debt. Therefore, the casino would take a 30% commission from the winner and waive all the fees for the loser. However, the participants would have to pay a membership fee every year. Also, we'll hire new dealers, all of them new faces. They'll be in charge of supervising every game. If anyone is caught cheating, they'll have to pay 10 times the compensation and be banished from the casino forever. Han Yunxi had only given a rough idea, but it left everyone gaping. After all, for thousands of years in Cloud Realm continent, the casino had always been the host. No one had ever played like this before. It wasn't common for the dealers to cheat in every game, so the casinos would make losses and profits every day. Only after a month's worth of transactions would they make a profit. But Han Yunxi's idea was to make money every day. No matter who won or lost, someone would always win. As long as someone won, the casino would get a cut. Moreover, Han Yunxi had limited the qualifications of the participants. Anyone with a net worth of 300 million or more was a rich man, so the chips for each round wouldn't be low. Everyone present was an old hand in business, so Han Yunxi only needed to give them a rough idea before they could sniff out all sorts of business opportunities from this model. The profits from this model weren't limited to just commission and membership fees. There were many other things that could be done, such as custom-made private rooms, servants, and even restaurants and inns. Good, good, good. Your Royal Highness's idea is excellent. The head elder couldn't help praising. The other elders all nodded their heads in agreement. They couldn't wait to discuss all sorts of ways to make money. Uncle Cheng's gaze was complicated. He had no choice but to give in. Still, he wasn't willing to give up and threw out another difficult problem. Your Royal Highness's idea is good, but what? Uncle Cheng, feel free to speak. Han Yunxi's attitude was excellent, but her eyes were filled with suspicion. She was sharp to begin with, and with all sorts of people making things difficult for her over the years, she sharply sensed Uncle Cheng's hostility after a few words from Uncle Cheng. When it came to business matters, the elders should be more sensitive than Uncle Cheng. However, while they were all immersed in joy, Uncle Cheng was very clear-headed and repeatedly asked her a few key questions. Why was that? Moreover, if she remembered correctly, Uncle Cheng was the closest person to Ning Cheng and knew almost everything about Ning Cheng. He must know the truth about the hostage situation. When she was confronting Ning Jing and the head elder, where was Uncle Cheng? Why didn't he speak up? What was his attitude? It's just that, with a net worth of 300 million, the number of gamblers attracted is small. The overall profits won't be as much as before, Uncle Cheng said seriously. At his words, the head elder hastened to add, don't worry about that. As long as we open another casino and lower the bar, we'll still attract plenty of gamblers. Her Royal Highness's idea is that we don't have to play host to the casinos. Uncle Cheng, three-way black markets casinos are the wind vane of Cloud Realm Continent's casinos. Whatever winds blow here, there's bound to be big waves outside. I'm sure news of the cheating has already spread to all the casinos by now. Now that this bowl of rice isn't tasty, how can we recover our past profits so quickly? We have to strike while the iron's hot and seize the time to open a casino. If we use the cheating scandal to make a fuss, we'll definitely get the upper hand. Uncle Cheng pursed his lips, unable to retort. Even the head elder had spoken against him, so what else could he say? Leaving aside everything else, Han Yunxi had already won the Council of Elders' hearts over the matter of the casinos. Han Yunxi's eyes flashed craftily. Uncle Cheng, I'll leave the matter of opening another casino to you. You have to seize the time. If you mess it up, it'll be hard for you to explain yourself to Ning Cheng when he comes back. Uncle Cheng's heart gave a lurch as he glanced at Han Yunxi, then averted his eyes in panic. Did Han Yunxi see something? Was she warning him? He had his eyes on the casinos to begin with, but Han Yunxi just had to give him full responsibility. What else could he do? In the end, he'd end up tormenting himself. Uncle Cheng realized in hindsight that he'd underestimated Han Yunxi too much. Now he could only place his hopes on the auction house. Han Yunxi had given him the casinos, but she couldn't just leave the other elders to the side and give him the auction house as well. As long as the auction house wasn't given to him, he didn't need to be responsible for it, and he could play some tricks. Yes, I'll do my best. Uncle Cheng endured for the time being. Then you should hurry and find a place. Han Yunxi's tone was still very polite. Uncle Cheng originally wanted to stay and listen to how Han Yunxi would deal with the storm in the auction house. Who knew that Han Yunxi would send him away like this? He could only withdraw first and come back to inquire about the auction house in detail. The storm in the auction house was that the real item had been replaced with a fake by a trader. The buyer not only demanded compensation, but also demanded the return of the real item. Elders, what do you think about this matter? Han Yunxi asked. Your Highness, I suspect that the buyer colluded with the trader. We've already proposed a compensation of 10 times the auction price. Generally speaking, customers won't refuse, second elder said seriously. This subordinate has the same opinion. If Han Yunxi knew that Golden Wing Hall was one of Gu Qishao's businesses, how would she react if she found out that Gu Qishao had tricked Myriad Merchant Hall just to avenge her? Han Yunxi had fourth elder and third elder assist Uncle Qing, while head elder and second elder took charge of the auction house. Fifth elder remained behind to coordinate the various affairs of Myriad Merchant Hall. After the meeting adjourned, she instructed fifth elder in a low voice, "Find those gamblers who caused a ruckus at the gambling house and tie them up as well. I have to make them give up Golden Wing Palace." After that, Han Yunxi hurried to Ning Jing's courtyard. She was vexed. Just how was she supposed to get Tang Li out of jail? Chapter 9:14. When Han Yunxi arrived at Ning Jing's room, she saw Mu Ling'er concentrating on making medicine in the study. "What are you doing?" Han Yunxi was puzzled. "I'm trying to find a way to mix these two prescriptions so that Ning Jing can better absorb the effect of the medicine and reduce the effect of the medicine on the fetus," Mu Ling'er said seriously. "How is she?" Han Yunxi asked in a low voice. "She didn't say anything for most of the day. I didn't dare to talk to her," Mu Ling'er said and asked in a low voice, "Sister, are Ning Jing and Tang Li really in love with each other? If they don't love each other, how can they have a baby?" Han Yunxi asked. Mu Ling'er nodded bitterly. "Sister, is there any news about Qi brother? He Lu is only half a day away from here. Why hasn't he come back yet?" If Mu Ling'er didn't ask, Han Yunxi would have been so busy that she forgot about it. "He should be back. Didn't you find him?" Although she and Long Fei Yi came back in advance, the people of the D clan and Long Fei Ye's shadow guard were still tracking by Yu Qiao's whereabouts near Yu Mountain. If Gu went there the day after the explosion of He Lu, he should have met those guards. "Qi brother will definitely go there," Mu Ling'er said. Suddenly, she was shocked and grabbed Han Yunxi's hand. "Sister, will Qi brother be okay?" Han Yunxi was also a little worried. She hurriedly ordered the attendant to ask the fifth elder to send more people to look for him. "Do you want to go in with me and see her?" Han Yunxi asked. Mu Ling'er was still full of guilt and didn't dare to face Ning Jing. "Sister, you go in by yourself. I just saw her." Han Yunxi didn't feel embarrassed. When they were far away, she looked back and said with a smile, "Girl, you call me sister so smoothly." Then she smiled proudly and gently brushed her bangs. She turned and walked into the room, leaving Mu Ling'er stunned. Mu Ling'er realized that she had called her sister, for 2 days. As soon as Han Yunxi came in, Ning Jing immediately asked about the casino and the auction. "Why don't you ask me about Tang Li?" Han Yunxi asked. "Don't mention him. You should know that the auction and casino are your only chance." Although Ning Jing's body recovered slowly, her spirit recovered well. Han Yunxi told Ning Jing the details of today's meeting. Ning Jing was silent for a long time and finally gave a thumbs up. "Han Yunxi, you're good." It was a pity that Mu Ling'er didn't come in. Otherwise, Mu Ling'er would definitely cry. Although she didn't know how Qi brother planned to scheme against Ning Qing, she knew that the master of Golden Wing Palace was Qi brother. Of course, if Gu was in the three-way black market at this time, he might have given Golden Wing Palace to Han Yunxi. What was the point of fighting? Could Golden Wing Palace be the property of the Feng clan? Ning Jing asked suspiciously. No, if the Feng clan had Golden Wing Palace, Jun Yixia wouldn't be short of soldiers' pay, Han Yunxi said seriously. One of the many measures that the Northern Dynasty's emperors took to control Jun Xia was to withhold all the soldiers' pay. The 30,000 horses that had arrived, the 30,000 horses that were on the way, and the 30,000 horses that were about to set off were all served with real money. I suspect that your brother might not have fallen into Bai Yanqing's hands. Otherwise, Bai Yanqing and Jun Xia wouldn't have waited for death. They would have threatened him long ago. Han Yunqi analyzed seriously. Then where can Bai Yuqiao take my brother? Not only did Ning Jing not understand, but Han Yunqi also didn't understand. How could they have thought of the gap between Bai Yanqing and Jun Xie? They also didn't know to what extent Bai Yuqiao would worsen this master-disciple relationship. Han Yunqi and Ning Jing chatted like this. Ning Jing didn't want to talk about Tang Li, so Han Yunqi didn't mention it either. She always hoped that Tang Li could personally tell Ning Jing his sincerity instead of her. Moreover, if she told the truth now, if Ning Jing didn't listen to her and insisted on going to prison, then she would be the one to blame. As they chatted, Han Yunqi casually asked, Ning Jing, what do you think of Uncle Qing? He is my father's attendant. After my father passed away, he has been following my brother. In the D clan, he is the only one who dares to talk back to my brother. Han Yunqi asked tentatively, then, about our cooperation. Before she could finish speaking, Ning Jing interrupted, you can't tell anyone, especially him. Han Yunqi, can the people who follow my brother not be as stubborn as him? If you want to control the D clan, then you have to control Uncle Qing first. Han Yunqi nodded, knowing what to do. You rest for now. I will go out and put on a show later. Just say that you suddenly fainted at the casino and overworked yourself. The doctor said that you need to rest in bed for a while, Han Yunqi instructed in a low voice. I will make the proper arrangements for the doctor and maidservants. You can rest assured and rest well. I will send someone to inform you about the casino and the auction house. Help me keep an eye on them to avoid any mistakes. Don't worry. I will keep an eye on them, Ning Jing said seriously. After Han Yunqi left, she followed the plan and said that Ning Jing was sick and had to rest in bed. She bribed a maidservant from Fifth Elder's side and found a doctor from outside. Finally, she managed to hide this matter. After she was done, she hurriedly asked the maidservant to push her into the prison cell. From afar, she could hear Tang Li shouting, Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law. Are you calling my soul? Han Yunqi asked unhappily. Where is Ning Jing? Tang Li had waited for a long time. He thought that Han Yunqi would bring Ning Jing over. Han Yunqi did not intend to say it. However, after hesitating for a long time, she finally felt that Ning Jing's pregnancy and almost miscarriage was a serious matter. As her husband, Tang Li had the right and obligation to know. Anyway, Tang Li would know sooner or later. If she did not say it now, she would definitely be blamed by Tang Li in the future. Han Yunqi hooked her finger at Tang Li, come here. I will tell you another secret. Unlike last time, this time Tang Li rushed over and obediently bent down to listen. However, when Han Yunqi told him the truth, he was no longer obedient. He rushed out of the prison without saying a word. Fortunately, Han Yunqi had the foresight to lock the door when she just came in. Not to mention that there were archers outside. Tang Li could not rush out. Even if he rushed out, what could he do? He and Ning Jing were now like her and Long Fei Yi. They could not make their relationship public. The D clan still did not know the relationship between the Tang sect and Long Fei Yi. However, the Pearflower Storm Needles had completely broken the relationship between the D clan and the Tang sect. If the news of Ning Jing's pregnancy spread, the one who would suffer a big loss would be Ning Jing. Tang Li could only be controlled by the D clan. Tang Li kicked the prison door with all his strength. Recalling what Ning Jing had said in Medical City, he simply wanted to slap himself. How could he be so stupid and careless? At that time, he had put Ning Jing under house arrest. For 3 days and 3 nights, he had only given her water and 3 meals. He had even hung her hands up to torture her and threatened to hang her to the city gate. At that time, Ning Jing had smiled and said to him, "Ali, I am pregnant." "Ning Jing, you silly woman. Aren't you silly?" Tang Li's heart was broken. Although he was scolding her, his tone was doting, as if Ning Jing was standing right in front of him. He finally understood why the stubborn Ning Jing had compromised at that time. It turned out that it was for the sake of the child in her womb. He should be so glad that Ning Jing had compromised. Otherwise, he would not have needed to hang her to the city gate. He only needed to starve her for 3 days and 3 nights, and she would not be able to hold on. His child would be gone. Bam! With a loud bang, Tang Li fiercely punched the prison door. After Tang Li vented his anger, Han Yunxi said indifferently, "Tang Li, if you want to save your child's life, you better calm down. Otherwise, the mother and son will be in big trouble. Don't forget where you are." Actually, there was no need for Han Yunxi to say anything. Tang Li should be more aware of the consequences. He clenched his fist tightly and pressed it against the prison door. He calmed down and endured. After a while, Tang Li said, "Sister-in-law, is there really no way to get me out of here?" "There is a way, but it is too risky at this juncture." Han Yunxi was in a difficult position. Unexpectedly, Tang Li was very decisive. "Then help me take care of the mother and son." He was silent for a while, then continued, "Sister-in-law, let me know when you want to deal with Bai Yanqing. No matter what, I want to bring Ning Jing back to the Tang sect." Han Yunxi suddenly felt that Tang Li had grown up. She agreed without hesitation. "Okay, let your brother arrange it for you." Han Yunxi finally remembered Long Fei Yi. She had abandoned him before dawn and had been busy until now. The sky was almost dark. Long Fei Yi should be on his way to Western Zhou now. Tang Li's child would have to call Long Fei Yi uncle. Long Fei Yi was going to be an uncle. Han Yunxi suddenly felt very incredulous. She recalled that Long Fei Yi had asked her several times before. She couldn't help but feel bitter. Children. How could it be so easy to get them just because they wanted them? If they met on the battlefield one day, what would happen to the children? Han Yunxi shook her head, unwilling to think about it. She felt that she should hurry up and deal with the casino and the auction. If she could settle these 2 matters before Long Fei Yi returned and take over Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Council, they could settle the score with Bai Yanqing as soon as possible. Gu Beiyue's situation and the little thing's whereabouts were still unknown. She really missed them. Thus, after Han Yunxi left the prison cell, she covered her face with a veil and had a servant girl push her to the auction. Just as she left through the front door, Long Fei Yi happened to sneak in from behind. Long Fei Yi waited in the room for the whole night again. Han Yunxi only returned in the middle of the night. This time, he witnessed the entire process of Han Yunxi taking a bath. It was only when Han Yunxi cleaned up and wrapped in a silk nightgown that he suddenly walked out from behind the screen and asked casually, "Tired? Want to sleep?" Han Yunxi was really frightened and almost fell off the bed. She stared at him in disbelief, wondering if she was dreaming. Why didn't you come out earlier?" Han Yunxi also asked the same question last night. However, the meaning behind his words today was completely different. Last night, he came out when she was in the middle of her bath. Today, he actually silently watched her finish her bath before coming out. Just now, how much did he see? Thinking of this and looking at Long Fei Ye's scrutinizing eyes, Han Yunxi couldn't help but think of their first time. She had taken off her clothes and he had seriously and overbearingly scrutinized her body, her everything. Sometimes, the way this man looked at her made her afraid. She felt like she would be eaten up at any time. I saw everything. Long Fei Yi was still as direct as last night. He immediately ridiculed her. Your movements are quite nimble. Han Yunqi finally understood the displeasure in his eyes. Chapter 9:15. Long Fei Yi had no intention of going to Western Zhou at all. He had already thought of an excuse to meet Han Yunqi, but who knew that he would have to wait for her for an entire night. Not only did he have to wait, he even witnessed her dragging her legs to soak in the bath, not allowing her handmaidens to serve her. She even secretly took a few steps away. It was already good enough that he ignored Han Yunqi. If Han Yunqi angered him again, he would probably carry her away and put her under house arrest in East Origin Palace. He would let her recuperate until her legs were completely healed. Long Fei Yi ignored her, and Han Yunqi did not anger Long Fei Yi either. Instead, she began to act coquettishly. Long Fei Yi, you're lying, aren't you? You can't bear to part with me, right? Under Long Fei Yi's gloomy gaze, Han Yunqi held his arm. Her words caused Long Fei Yi's expression to change completely. He avoided her smiling gaze. Am I right? Han Yunqi leaned over and asked gently. Long Fei Yi coughed lightly and did not answer. Han Yunqi thought that she would have to deal with him for a while to calm him down. She did not expect it to be so simple. She really could not learn to speak coquettishly, so she asked gently, Long Fei Yi, let's make a bet. With Han Yunqi's gentle voice, Long Fei Yi's towering rage was instantly extinguished. Even if his heart was made of steel, it was instantly softened and melted by her words. He lowered his head to look at her. He was a little flustered and at a loss for what to do. He did not know how to respond. At this time, no matter what this woman asked of him, he would definitely agree to it. This was his Achilles heel. Han Yunqi did not ask for anything. She tugged at his arm and asked persistently, Long Fei Yi, do you want to bet? Okay. He immediately agreed. He did not even know what to bet. I bet you'll come to me again tomorrow. Han Yunqi couldn't help bursting into laughter. Long Fei finally recovered from her gentleness and realized in hindsight that this woman was mocking him. He could hide it from her last night, but he came again tonight. No matter how perfect the excuse was, Han Yunqi would not believe it. Even though he was mocked by this woman, he did not get angry. Instead, he could not help but laugh along with her. Long Fei Yi, what about you? What are you betting on? Han Yunqi asked again. She bet that he would come to find her the next day, so he had to bet that he wouldn't. If he wanted to win the bet, he would have to endure it tomorrow and not come. Han Yunqi was determined to eat him up and win against him. Well, you even tricked me. Long Fei Yi smiled helplessly, full of pampering. I didn't. You were the one who was willing to bet with me. I didn't force you. Han Yunqi retorted. Han Yunqi was afraid that he would be angry at first, but seeing his reaction, she became playful. It was really not easy for her. Han Yunqi felt like her soul was being pierced through. When the two of them finally calmed down, Long Fei Yi was still unwilling to move away. She hugged him, both amused and angry. What else do you want? 100 steps. You can't go any further, right? Long Fei Yi asked lazily. Only then did Han Yunqi realize that the distance between them was negative. She was so embarrassed that her flushed cheeks turned even redder. You pervert. She said coquettishly. Long Fei buried his head in her shoulder and chuckled soundlessly. Han Yunqi pushed him a few times, but he still didn't move. Actually, there were many times when she couldn't do anything to him, so she just let him hang around. Hugging each other wasn't just hugging each other, it was also having each other. Only when she hugged him tightly did she feel that the road ahead was long and not lonely. When she looked at his face so closely just now, it wasn't as close and real as it was now. The Bible said, "I see that everything done under the sun is empty and chasing after the wind." Han Yunqi thought that there was only one definition of what was real, and that was to have it. Only when one had it would it be real. Han Yunqi was in a daze. Long Fei Yi eventually retreated. He casually grabbed the silk blanket and wrapped it around his body. Even if it was just a casual movement, it was still so beautiful and sexy. Only then did Han Yunqi see that the bite mark on his left hand had already become a scar. There were 2 scars, half crescent-shaped and dark brown. Although some bite marks left scars, they would gradually fade over time. However, the bite mark on Long Fei Ye's hand was so deep that it would stay there for the rest of his life unless he used some miracle medicine. Since the scar had been successfully left behind, what else could Han Yunqi say? She pulled Long Fei Ye's hand over and looked at it carefully. Long Fei Ye, if what? The birthmark was actually a bite mark from a lover in her past life. If it was later, she had always been curious. Long Fei Yi smiled but didn't say anything. Han Yunqi pestered him. She found his Achilles heel and pleaded gently, "Tell me." Who knew that Long Fei Yi still wouldn't tell her? He had already made up his mind not to tell her so early. Han Yunqi didn't give up. She simply acted coquettishly and begged coquettishly, "Long Fei Yi, just tell me. Tell me, tell me." As she begged, she even rubbed against his chest. Long Fei Ye's immunity was completely gone. No matter how strong his heart was, it couldn't withstand her coquettish voice. He had always hated this kind of voice, but he couldn't resist her. If she continued to pester him like this, she might not be able to get out of bed even when the sun rose. Okay, I'll tell you." As soon as Long Fei Yi surrendered, Han Yunqi immediately stopped pestering him. Long Fei Yi immediately regretted it. Actually, it was okay to be pestered by her for a while longer. "Tell me." She became serious. A birthmark is actually a bite mark from a lover in a previous life. If the bite mark doesn't disappear until death in this life, it will definitely become a birthmark in the next life. Long Fei Yi paused for a moment and laughed. "Han Yunqi, if you see this bite mark in the next life, you have to recognize me." It was a beautiful legend, but why did Han Yunqi feel like crying when she heard it? She was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she stretched out her hand. "Long Fei Yi, bite it. Bite it hard." She clearly didn't believe in such a ridiculous legend, but for some reason, she wanted to leave a mark that belonged to him. Long Fei Yi rejected her. "Don't worry. If there really is a next life, I'll recognize you even if you don't have a birthmark." So, did he believe it or not? Han Yunqi knitted her brows as she looked at him. She felt like she should say something, but didn't know what to say. She stared and stared at Long Fei until she suddenly hugged him tightly. What next life? If they could grow old together in this life, be it ruling the world or making money, then it would be eternal. Han Yunqi didn't like the topic of next life. She said, "Long Fei Yi, let me tell you some good news." Good news? Long Fei Yi was very surprised. "Ning Jing is pregnant." "She's been pregnant for more than 4 months, Han Yunqi said softly. Long Fei Yi smiled. "Tang Li, this rascal, you're going to be an uncle," Han Yunqi said again. Although Long Fei Yi was happy for Tang Li, he wasn't as happy as Han Yunqi. He looked at Han Yunxi's stomach expressionlessly. He didn't say a word, and Han Yunxi knew what he was thinking. Long Fei Yi knew she knew what he meant, so he waited for her to speak. After a while, Han Yunxi said, "It's almost dawn." In other words, he had to leave. Long Fei gave a serious sigh. "Looks like I haven't worked hard enough." A few years ago, they had attended a family banquet in the palace. At the time, the Empress Dowager had asked about Han Yunxi's stomach. Long Fei Yi had said he would work hard when he returned. Long Fei Yi got off the bed and quickly packed up to leave. Han Yunxi couldn't help but grab his hand. "Fei, it's not time yet." "I know," Long Fei Yi said mildly. He could stop Bailey Yuan Long, but he couldn't stop Han Yunxi herself. He had always known that she would take precautions after the event. Now really wasn't the time to have a child. He hadn't even fulfilled his promise to her, so how could he give her another responsibility? He really hadn't worked hard enough. Chapter 9:16. If now was not the time, when would it be? At the very least, it had to be like the pot of sunflowers she had moved outside the tent. They had to see the light and be magnanimous. Unlike now, when he had to leave at daybreak. "If you need money, go to Kangon Bank and tell them your name." Long Fei Yi left these words before leaving. Undoubtedly, he had given in again. In these 2 nights, he had the urge to find Han Yunxi several times and take her away to carry out his plan to lure Bai Yanqing out. But in the end, he restrained himself. Han Yunxi stared blankly as Long Fei Yi's lonely figure disappeared outside the window. Her heart ached faintly. Of course, she knew that Long Fei Yi had given in again. If Myriad Merchant Hall wanted to survive this crisis, it was all about money. As long as they could hold on, they could afford to play, right? She had Long Fei Yi's limitless gold card, but she could not use it openly in Myriad Merchant Hall. If it was a bank, she could borrow it in the name of the Chamber of Commerce. Borrowing money was not an easy task. Besides, if the Chamber of Commerce wanted to borrow money, it would be a large sum. It was even more difficult. Since Long Fei Yi had opened his mouth, it would be easy no matter how much she borrowed. Long Fei Yi had given in for her, but it had also benefited the D clan for nothing. "Long Fei Yi, even if we meet on the battlefield, I will definitely live on and bear you a bunch of children." Han Yunxi murmured with tears in her eyes and a smile. Even if Long Fei Yi had given in, she did not want Long Fei Yi to suffer losses. She had a way. In the next few days, Han Yunxi was really busy. Long Fei Yi would come over at night to help her change her bandages and hug her to sleep. The 2 of them did not bring up the topic of children again. Long Fei Yi clearly knew that there would be no result no matter how hard he tried, but he worked even harder than before. He even tormented her several times in one night, leaving countless marks on her body. Han Yunxi always felt that he was punishing her. However, she accepted it and gladly endured it. She worked even harder to think of a way to settle the matter with Myriad Merchant Hall. It took Uncle Qing 3 days to find 2 locations in the 2 busiest cities near the 3-way battlefield. One was located on the border between Tianning and Western Zhou, and was called the West Jade Garden. The other was located within Tianning, south of the 3-way Black Market, and was called the South Ju Garden. Both gardens occupied a large area. There were enough halls to be converted into gambling halls and enough side rooms to be converted into guest rooms. As soon as Uncle Qing returned, he gave Han Yunxi the blueprints for the 2 gardens. Han Yunxi studied them carefully and liked them very much. She also silently admired Uncle Chang's ability to find locations. These 2 gardens used to be summer residences for the Ning imperial clan. A few years ago, Emperor Tianhui lacked funds for his troops during the Civil War, so he sold off many of the imperial gardens, including the South Ju and West Jade gardens. They were sold off at a cheap price. After the buyer bought them, they left them empty. After all, the border regions are filled with war, so it's not a good place to live, Uncle Ching explained. Before Cloud Realm Trade Consortium lost its business with the South Central regions, they rarely bought empty gardens or residences no matter how rich they were. Most of their wealth was invested in business. Gardens and residences didn't make money, but they were extremely costly. It was not a small expense for a garden to be equipped with servants and housekeepers. Moreover, every brick, tile, flower, tree, and grass in the garden needed to be maintained regularly. The D clan's Ning family was definitely a family of merchants. They haggled over every penny and wouldn't waste a single copper coin unless it was absolutely necessary. Since they're empty, the price shouldn't be too high, right? Han Yunxi asked. Uncle Ching sighed and raised a palm. Now everyone was stunned, including Han Yunxi. One palm was worth 5. The price was 50 million. 500 million yuan. After all, these two gardens weren't just any ordinary gardens. In terms of land area, one of them was worth more than 10 large residences combined. Of course it couldn't be 50 million. But if it wasn't 50 million, could it be 500 million? That was too high, wasn't it? Just how much is it? The head elder grew anxious. The two residences belong to the same person. His surname is Chen, and his origins are unknown. If we sell them together, it'll be 500 million, Uncle Ching replied. Is this daylight robbery? The head elder cursed. What's going on? Could it be that he knows we're buying them to open a gambling house? Old Ching, did you leak something? The second elder questioned. I'm innocent. I didn't leak anything. I just said that Master likes it and wants to buy it for a short stay. Uncle Ching looked aggrieved. In reality, the garden owner had only offered a price of 200 million. Uncle Ching had promised to give the garden owner an additional 50 million as a rebate, so that the garden owner could fake the price with him and raise the price. Then what's going on? Han Yunxi asked. The garden owner said that if we don't hurry up and order it, we might not be able to buy it in 2 days, Uncle Ching said helplessly. There are others who want to buy it. Who are they? Han Yunxi quickly asked. Uncle Ching shook his head. The garden owner refused to say. I'm wondering if it's someone from East Origin Hole. If the garden owner can offer 500 million, it means that the other buyers are not cheap. Aside from East Origin Hall, who else in this war-torn land could be so wealthy to throw away such a large sum of money? Han Yunxi wasn't the only one who could think of opening another gambling house. If East Origin Hall beat them to it, then it would be difficult for them. The elders looked at each other and became anxious. Actually, Myriad Merchant Hall could afford the price of 500 million. Even if they couldn't, they could use the limitless gold card to pay first. However, once they bought it, what if Han Yunxi's plan to reopen the gambling house failed? Then this expenditure would go down the drain. No matter how perfect a business model was, there were still risks. 500 million was not a small sum. At this critical juncture, Myriad Merchant Hall couldn't afford to gamble. The silver used on the limitless gold card had to be returned within a month. Uncle Ching saw the difficult expressions on the elders' faces and was secretly delighted. He had led the suspicion to East Origin Hall, which was foolproof. First, it would arouse the elders' fighting spirit. Second, no one would be able to investigate the truth. It's good, but it's a little too big. We don't need such a big one. Old Ching, is there anything else? Grand Elder asked tactfully. That's it. There are only these 2 places. If someone else gets there first, they won't be able to get there. If they snatch them, it'll be difficult for us. Uncle Ching said. Actually, it was possible to open a gambling house elsewhere, but it wouldn't be as convenient as near the three-way black market. Those who came to the three-way black market to do business were mostly gamblers. Seeing that no one spoke, Uncle Ching helplessly reminded, "Princess, we can choose another place. However, if East Origin Hall takes over such a good place and we reopen the gambling house, they'll copy our gambling house model. Then we really won't be able to survive." Hearing this, the elders became anxious. No matter how good a business model was, it still required the right time, place, and people. Location was very important when doing business. A complicated look flashed across Han Yunxi's eyes. When she looked at Uncle Ching, her gaze deepened. Long Fei Yi wanted to buy a garden. Why didn't he tell her? If he wanted to buy a garden, then so be it. Why did he have to ask for such a high price? Was Uncle Ching lying? Or did Long Fei Yi want to give her a surprise? As for the truth, she'd better ask him tonight. Han Yunxi accepted the 2 blueprints and said calmly, "I'll think about it for a night and give you an answer tomorrow morning. Elders, please consider it carefully." Uncle Ching sneered inwardly. These 2 gardens were enough to make things difficult for Han Yunxi. He didn't need to think about the auction house anymore. After discussing the gambling house, Han Yunxi asked about the auction house. That troublemaking buyer had already been locked up in Myriad Merchant Hall's dungeon for 2 days. Grand Elder had arranged everything properly. Now, the 2 sides of public opinion in the three-way black market were evenly matched. Some said that the buyer had been silenced by Myriad Merchant Hall. Myriad Merchant Hall refused to admit to selling fake goods and even killed the buyer. Others said that the buyer had been kidnapped by Golden Wing Palace. Golden Wing Palace not only hit Myriad Merchant Hall when they were down in the gambling house, they also wanted to frame Myriad Merchant Hall for the auction house. Everything was progressing smoothly, but the buyer still refused to confess. "Princess, could it be that we made a mistake?" Grand Elder asked seriously. He had used capital punishment, but the buyer insisted that he was innocent. "There's no need to interrogate him. Rest well," Han Yunxi said calmly. "Princess, the auction house hasn't had any business for 6 days. Yesterday, old Lu brought out the 10 treasures. There were many onlookers, but no one bid," Second Elder said helplessly. No matter what public opinion was, it would pass eventually. The key was whether the auction house still had business. "Everyone knows about Kangon Bank, right?" Han Yunxi said calmly. As soon as this name was announced, everyone's eyes lit up. Kangon Private Bank was Cloud Realm Continent's #1 private bank, famous for its mysterious background. Out of the 10 limitless gold cards, 5 of them came from this bank. The limitless gold card that Deacon Jean had given to Mu Ling came from Kangon Bank. Apparently, people from the bank had already sought out Deacon Jean over the past few days. "Princess, why did you mention Kangon Bank?" Grand Elder asked nervously. "I'm planning to use the auction house business to cooperate with Kangon Bank. Manager Luo has agreed, but I don't know what you all think." Everyone grew even more stunned at her words. Not to mention the method of cooperation, since shopkeeper Luo had agreed, it meant that the cooperation was profitable. In other words, the auction house's business could be saved. Manager Luo was a famous figure in the circle for being in charge of such a large bank. Any business he approved of would definitely succeed. In his excitement, Grand Elder blurted out, "Princess, you can make all the decisions. This is Myriad Merchant Hall's business, after all. It's more appropriate for the elders to make the decisions." Han Yunxi feigned modesty. "Your Highness Princess is too modest. We have pledged our loyalty to Western Qin, so naturally we'll listen to the princess's arrangements. Grand Elder immediately followed up. The Council of Elders will listen to Your Highness Princess's arrangements. Han Yunxi didn't need their verbal obedience. She wanted Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Command Medallion. Without Ning Qing here, Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Command Medallion was superior to all of the D Clan's Council of Elders. As long as Grand Elder was willing to hand over the item, she'd win. There were still 6 days left until her agreement with Long Fei Yi, so she had patience. Naturally, I won't let you down, Han Yunxi said seriously. She then told them the details of her cooperation with Kangon Private Bank. Once again, the elders and Uncle Qing were shaken by Han Yunxi's words, a deep shock. Han Yunxi's method of cooperation not only saved Long Fei Yi, but also saved the auction house. What was it? Chapter 9:17. Han Yunxi and Kangon Bank had reached an agreement. Any guest who participated in Myriad Merchant Hall's auction could borrow money from Kangon Bank to pay the auction house once they won the bid. Furthermore, the interest rate would be 10 points lower than the normal interest rate. Many people bid for rare items at high prices, not because they had any use for them, nor because they liked to keep them. Instead, they wanted to resell them. Once they won the bid, they could sell it within a month. They could also hoard it and sell it a year later. People in this kind of business wouldn't just bid for one item. Many people would bid for several items in a single night. A large portion of them had the problem of lacking funds. They would often calculate the interest rate and borrow money to bid for the items. Even if they borrowed money to bid, they could still resell the item in the end. They could still make a profit. Han Yunxi's suggestion of a partnership was simply to serve these people. As long as they participated in Myriad Merchant Hall's auction house, they could get a loan from Kangon Bank that was 10 points lower than the normal interest rate. How could they not be tempted? It was equivalent to earning 10 points more than at other auction houses. What did 10 points mean? If an item was worth 10 million, then 10 points would be 1 million. Han Yunxi didn't need to explain further. Everyone present knew how tempting this offer was. With Kangon Private Bank's strong support, as long as Myriad Merchant Hall came up with some policies and promised to compensate for the fakes, many buyers would come uninvited. Once they came, they would slowly boost the auction hall's business. As long as the auction house was strictly controlled within a month or two and there were no more fake goods, business would definitely be better than before. They might even steal business away from Golden Wing Hall and East Origin Hall. Princess, why is Kangon Bank giving us such a huge discount? Uncle Qing asked. This was what everyone wanted to know. What kind of relationship did Han Yunxi have with Kangon Bank? How could she get such a huge advantage? Unexpectedly, Han Yunxi said, "We didn't. We have a secret agreement. Kangon Bank will give the buyer 10% of the profit, and Myriad Merchant Hall will compensate Kangon Bank with 13%. Kangon Bank actually earns 3% more than the normal interest." The moment she said this, Uncle Qing panicked. Princess, in the end, we'll be the ones at a disadvantage. We lost 13 points for nothing. That's a bargain for the buyers. How can there be such a good thing? Han Yunxi sneered, all right then. Go make an announcement right now. Say that Myriad Merchant Hall's auction house will offer a 13% discount on everything sold. See who's willing to come. Let's see who will believe you. Uncle Qing was speechless. The elders looked at each other, speechless. Why should Kangon Bank earn more? They had credibility, and buyers were willing to trust them. Uncle Qing, the fact that Kangon Bank is willing to cooperate with us means that they're giving us credit for free. Is Kangon Bank's reputation only worth 3%? Han Yunqi questioned. Uncle Qing didn't say anything, so she continued, we lost 13 points, but that's not a loss. At most, we earned less. Which items sold at the auction house didn't earn several times the original price. Besides, the buyers might not necessarily repay the full amount of the loan, so we might not earn so much from every sale. Uncle Qing didn't answer, so Han Yunqi looked at him coldly. Uncle Qing, do you know how to calculate? Uncle Chang's head hung even lower. He didn't dare to retort, secretly hating himself for being too impulsive just now. All of the elders looked at Han Yunqi, thoroughly convinced of her abilities. They were all old, and this was the first time in their lives that they had seen such a capable woman who could manipulate business to such an extent. Han Yunqi was right. Although they had gone in a roundabout way, the auction house didn't lose any money, but only lost 13 points. Based on the current situation, even if they lost some money temporarily, they had to recover the business. What's more, they only lost 13 points. This woman was simply too smart. No wonder Manager Luo of Kangon Bank was willing to cooperate with her. First Elder secretly thought that if this matter was really successful, he would give the Elder's token to the princess. He believed that this woman had enough ability to lead Myriad Merchant Hall to regain the dominant position in three-way black market. Princess is wise. The Elders Guild will definitely support you fully. The Great Elder said seriously. The other 4 elders also took a step forward and bowed respectfully to show their loyalty. No matter how unwilling Uncle Qing was, he had to bow as well. Uncle Qing couldn't help but sigh again. How great would it be if this woman wasn't still together with Long Fei? If this woman could be together with Master Ning, he would do his best even if he had to sacrifice his old life. Thinking of Master Ning, Uncle Chang's eyes unconsciously turned red. He had already sent more people to search for him, and even went to Northernly. Unfortunately, there was no news so far. Han Yunqi discussed some details with the elders. When the meeting ended, it was already dark. She knew that Long Fei Yi would come, so she hurried to Ning Jing's side. When Ning Jing found out that Long Fei Yi was behind Kangon Bank, she was so shocked that she almost had a miscarriage. At this time, even the competitive Ning Jing had to admit that the D clan was no match for Long Fei Yi. She couldn't help but wonder how Ning Qing would feel if he knew about this. Han Yunqi hadn't mentioned Tang Li for a few days, but Ning Jing took the initiative to ask, how does the elders plan to deal with Tang Li? A trace of heartache flashed across Han Yunqi's eyes. She smiled and said, "You're so concerned about him." Ning Jing rolled her eyes at her and didn't say anything else. Han Yunqi didn't joke with her anymore. She said, "They're already busy enough with the casino and the auction. How can they care about Tang Li?" Ning Jing was silent for a while before speaking again. Han Yunqi, First Elder will definitely give you the Elder's token. As long as you control Myriad Merchant Hall, the Chamber of Commerce and the army will have to listen to you. You'll be able to see Long Fei Yi very soon. Han Yunqi was helpless. She saw Long Fei Yi every day. Not only did she see him every day, but she was also tortured by him every day. She knew what Ning Jing meant. As long as she controlled Myriad Merchant Hall, she could openly cooperate with Long Fei Yi and fight against Bai Yanqing in the name of Eastern and Western Qin. Han Yunqi, I have a favor to ask of you, Ning Jing said. I promise you. Han Yunqi answered without hesitation. Ning Jing was helpless. You know what I'm going to say. You want me to let Tang Li go, right? Han Yunqi smiled again. Ning Jing didn't hide it anymore. She openly admitted, Han Yunqi, before you leave Myriad Merchant Hall, please let Tang Li go. Silly, if I don't let him go, how can he take you away? Han Yunxi said this in her heart. Then what about you? Han Yunxi asked. If there really is a misunderstanding between Eastern and Western Qin, then, Ning Jing hesitated for a while, then said, then please tell him that the child and I are waiting for him at Myriad Merchant Hall. Han Yunxi endured it again and again. She was afraid that Ning Jing's pregnancy would be affected. Tang Li had also told her not to say anything and let her rest first. If we're not destined to be together, then don't worry about me, and don't look for me, Ning Jing said. Han Yunxi only nodded and didn't say anything else. Han Yunxi left Ning Jing's courtyard and went back. However, Long Fei Yi was still at East Origin Hall, for no other reason than that shopkeeper Luo had come to see him. If East Origin Hall was East Qin's treasury, then Kangon Private Bank was Long Fei Yi's personal property. The group of people from Kangon Private Bank didn't have any national enmity. They pointed out Long Fei Yi and money. Master, you have to hold on to such a smart and capable woman, shopkeeper Luo said teasingly. Although Han Yunxi didn't say much, a smile appeared on her lips. Han Yunxi was indeed his woman. She didn't let him suffer at all. Actually, Han Yunxi didn't need to say her name. Shopkeeper Luo would have agreed to her request. A private bank's profits came from the transactions of deposits and loans. Those who opened a private bank played with risk and reputation. Han Yunxi gave them 3% of profit for free. Of course they were happy to cooperate. Moreover, Han Yunxi's method of cooperation was simply too clever. He was sincerely convinced. How's the matter with Deacon Jean coming along? Long Fei Yi asked. I sent someone to rush him today and he's pretty much been forced into a dead end. Master, please wait and see. Shopkeeper Luo replied. Long Fei Yi already had his eyes on Deacon Jean. This fellow was very good at dealing with private banks and he was a member of the Winter Crow clan. He was proficient in the Winter Crow language, so he would have other uses for him. It was a pity that this fellow was too arrogant. If he didn't first pressure him and then buy him over, it would be very hard to make him yield. After shopkeeper Luo left, Long Fei Yi asked the shadow guard, has everything been arranged for the 100 poison sect? Everything has been arranged. The shadow guard honestly replied and handed over several secret letters. Long Fei Yi wanted to lure out Bai Yanqing, so he had to make a move on the 100 poison sect. This was the only method left. Long Fei Yi had just opened the second letter when the shadow guard came forward to remind him, Your Highness, it's getting late. In other words, Han Yunxi was waiting for him. How could the shadow guard be so busy? This must have been instructed by Su Donglin. Long Fei carried a pile of secret missives with him as he climbed over the walls of the courtyard. Only after he left would Bailey Mingxiang, who had been sitting in the garden waiting for him, return to her room. These days, she had been sitting in the garden in a daze when she wasn't cultivating. She missed esteemed Wang Fei, missed Xiao Yu, missed her father, and missed Xiao Mama. When Long Fei Yi entered the room, Han Yunxi was already lazily lying on the couch. Waiting for me? Long Fei Yi asked with great interest. Unexpectedly, Han Yunxi readily admitted, I've been waiting for you all night. Then come earlier tomorrow night. Long Fei Yi said this on purpose, knowing that she had something to say. Long Fei Yi, do you want to buy South Ju Garden and West Jade Garden? Han Yunxi asked bluntly. Long Fei Yi took Han Yunxi's rhetorical question as a question. Do you like them? He asked. No. Han Yunxi hastened to explain. I'm asking if you have plans to buy those 2 gardens. Have you sent someone to talk about the price? Long Fei Yi smiled. They're already under my name. Why would I want to buy them? Han Yunxi slowly raised her head, her expression incredulous. Just how many gardens do you have? Long Fei smiled but didn't speak. You've taken a fancy to those 2 gardens. A war-torn land was not a good place, nor was it a good place to hide. When Tianhui sold them at a low price, I bought them with the intention of reselling them. How much did you buy them for? Han Yunxi asked anxiously. 30 million for 1, 60 million for 2, Long Fei replied honestly. Then what about selling them? How much are you planning to sell them for? Han Yunxi asked again. I've left them to my subordinates to manage. I'm not sure either, Long Fei said mildly. He was just playing around with small businesses like this. He didn't care much about them. Han Yunxi narrowed her eyes. Long Fei, someone's offering 500 million. Are you selling them? Note to the reader, my previous address was wrong. Tang Li's children should call Long Fei uncle, not uncle. Chapter 9:18. 500 million. Long Fei grew suspicious. Han Yunxi wouldn't be so bored as to play such a joke on him. If Myriad Merchant Hall wanted to buy it, they wouldn't have offered such a high price. What's going on? Long Fei asked. Seeing Long Fei's attitude, Han Yunxi was 100% certain that Uncle Qing was up to something. If Long Fei's subordinate really offered 500 million, then such a large transaction would definitely be reported to Long Fei. Long Fei knew nothing about this matter, so there was only one possibility, and that was that Uncle Qing had misstated the price. Why would Uncle Qing misstate the price? Was it to line his own pockets and earn money from Myriad Merchant Hall? Or was it to make things difficult for her? Or perhaps it was both. What a Uncle Qing! If Ning Qing hadn't gone missing, his guts would have grown. Are you selling it for 500 million? Han Yunxi smiled even more meaningfully. 600 million. Are you buying it? Long Fei asked in return. Although he didn't know the whole story, he was certain that Myriad Merchant Hall had to be the one paying for it. 600 million. That's 300 million per garden. Han Yunxi began to calculate seriously. 600 million is a little expensive. 700 million. If you want it, then hurry up and order it. Otherwise, I won't sell it even if it's 1 billion. Long Fei also said seriously. What was this? 100 million taels in the time it took to say one sentence? If the 5 great elders knew about this, would they all vomit blood and die? What would Uncle Qing think if he knew? No matter how profitable the casino was, it wasn't as efficient as Long Fei's money-making. Buy. 700 million it is. No more increases. Han Yunxi couldn't help but laugh after saying that. This couldn't be considered as her helping Long Fei fight against Myriad Merchant Hall. It could only be said that Ning Qing wasn't strict enough with his subordinates and had been tricked by them. A house worth 30 million was sold for 300 million. Long Fei had made a huge profit. It was enough for many merchants to earn money for 1 or 2 years. What's going on? Long Fei warned. If you don't tell me, then prepare another 100 million. 800 million. Han Yunxi's mouth twitched. The price was ridiculously high. The elders would definitely oppose the purchase of these 2 gardens. This matter would be ruined. She immediately told Long Fei what Uncle Qing had told her that day. Long Fei immediately understood what was going on. He didn't comment much, but a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He only said, the person in charge of the 2 gardens is called Jia Dai. Tomorrow, I'll send someone over to inform him. You can handle the rest yourself. With that, he took out the secret letter. Leaning against the bed, he opened the letter one by one. Han Yunxi propped her hands on the bed and dragged her legs to sit up. She looked at Long Fei Yi with a smile but didn't say anything. Long Fei Yi didn't need to raise his head to know that she was looking at him. He ignored her and finished reading the secret letter in his hand. Then, he asked, "What are you laughing at?" Han Yunxi's smile deepened. Long Fei Yi caressed her small face. "What are you up to now? I'll give you all 700 million. Remember, Myriad Merchant Hall is not allowed to owe you a single cent." "I don't want your money." Han Yunxi rejected him immediately. Long Fei Yi finally looked up at her. "If you're not robbing me, then are you robbing me for my body?" Han Yunxi immediately shook her head. Before she could speak, Long Fei Yi approached her. "Then what are you laughing at?" Han Yunxi wrapped her arms around his neck and said seriously, "I just feel that it's really good to have you." Long Fei Yi slowly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. He said gently, "I'm only good to you." With that, he lowered his head and kissed her gently on the lips. Then, he took her hand away and focused on reading the secret letter. Han Yunxi's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this. Once she wrapped her arms around his neck, he definitely wouldn't let her go. Especially these past few nights, as long as he was on this bed, he definitely wouldn't let her be idle. He would torment her until she was powerless and fainted. But, what was wrong with him tonight? Han Yunxi was filled with suspicion. Hugging a pillow, she sat at the side and watched as Long Fei Yi focused on the secret letter without any distractions. The more Han Yunxi looked at him, the more she felt that something was wrong. Was this still Her Highness? Was he still that hungry wolf that she had been feeding for more than 2 months and couldn't get enough of? Han Yunxi thought that these secret letters should be very important, so she waited obediently at the side. After Long Fei Yi finished reading all the secret letters, he laid down on his side and said to her, "Why aren't you coming over?" Han Yunxi laughed inwardly. She really misunderstood him. She obediently snuggled into his embrace. She could already guess what he would do next. However, Han Yunxi waited for a long time. Long Fei Yi didn't provoke her like he did in the past. Instead, he just hugged her and quietly closed his eyes to sleep. Han Yunxi's eyes widened. Her gaze was complicated. If she still couldn't sense that Long Fei Yi was acting strangely, then she had accompanied him for so many years in vain. After a long period of silence, she gently took his hand, and Long Fei took it in his own. "You're not asleep yet?" Han Yunxi asked in a low voice. "Sleep." Long Fei Yi pulled her hand and wrapped it around her waist, hugging her a little tighter. How could Han Yunxi sleep? After a moment of silence, her small hand carefully broke free from Long Fei Yi's large hand. However, the moment she broke free, Long Fei Yi pulled her again and said in a low voice, "Be good. Sleep." Han Yunxi quieted down again. However, not long after, her hand moved again. This time, Long Fei Yi didn't stop her. Instead, he let her do as she pleased. Han Yunxi didn't do much either. She just gently stroked his fingers, caressing his slender fingers one by one. It was as if she was bored to death from insomnia, or as if she was secretly plotting something. Long Fei Yi was behind her, but his eyes were open the whole time. He was originally going to sleep, but the moment she moved, he was even more awake than she was. Han Yunxi played with Long Fei Yi's fingers. Seeing that Long Fei Yi didn't move, she pulled his hand to her lips and kissed it gently. Long Fei Yi's lips curled up slightly. He laughed silently and helplessly. Long Fei Yi. Finally, Han Yunxi spoke in a low voice. Long Fei Yi didn't move. He didn't answer. He smiled dotingly and helplessly. Only then did he realize that this woman was like him, desiring the other party. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqi called out softly again. He couldn't bear to leave her hanging for too long. He pulled her hand down and hid it under the silk blanket. He held it down and said in a low voice, "All right, be good and sleep." Han Yunqi finally realized that there was something wrong with Long Fei Yi tonight. Something was very wrong. She turned around and looked at him with a frown. Although she didn't ask, they had a tacit understanding. Long Fei Yi avoided her gaze and pulled her head into his embrace. Be good, be good. Go to sleep. I'll hug you to sleep." Han Yunqi wanted to move again, but Long Fei Yi finally restrained her. He said in a low voice, "Your body is more important. Be good." Han Yunqi suddenly realized what he meant. So he was concerned about her contraception. A tinge of bitterness surged in her heart. How could a mere good describe how good this man was? Long Fei Yi, you're so good that I really have no way of repaying you. Han Yunqi sat up as she spoke. Long Fei Yi sat up as well and was about to coax her when Han Yunqi wrapped her arms around his neck again. Long Fei Yi was about to move her hands away, but he couldn't bear to harden his heart. He lowered his head and murmured, "Yunqi, be good. It's time to sleep. I'm tired." She could hear the forbearance in his voice. Han Yunqi asked, "Long Fei Yi, if you have no way of repaying me, will you give me your body?" He knitted his brows and was about to push her away when Han Yunqi suddenly pressed his head down so that he was buried in her chest. "Stop fooling around." Long Fei Yi grew anxious. He remembered that Han Yunqi wouldn't let go, so he simply grabbed his hand and pressed it against her ample bosom. In this world, only this woman dared to force him like this. Only this woman had the ability to force him. Long Fei Yi finally couldn't hold himself back. He ruthlessly pushed her hand away from his head, but didn't leave. Instead, he viciously bit down. Although the bite wasn't deep, it left a shallow bite mark on her chest, which hurt a little. As soon as he let go, he growled, "Han Yunqi, you asked for it. I'm happy to." Han Yunqi threw caution to the wind. How could this man not want her? She gently stroked his chest. When she saw him furrow his brows, she became even more ruthless and pounced on him to kiss the sensitive spot on his chest. Han Yunqi. Long Fei Yi immediately raised his head and growled, "Han Yunqi, that's enough." "It's not enough," Han Yunqi said ruthlessly. She traced his refined and well-defined muscles all the way down. Long Fei Yi raised his head and closed his eyes. Only his long eyelashes trembled slightly. A thin layer of sweat seeped out from his temples. His expression seemed to be in pain, but he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. This was definitely torture. Fire burned through his entire body, as if his soul was bathed in fire. In the end, only Han Yunqi could put out the fire. That night, Han Yunqi truly experienced what it meant to play with fire and get burned. She slept and woke up all night. It wasn't until daybreak that a servant girl knocked on the door to remind her to eat, but Long Fei still didn't release her. "I'm not feeling well, so I'll get up later. Pass down the order that no one is to disturb me." Han Yunqi lay on the bed, trying her best to make her voice sound less hoarse. Long Fei Yi bullied her behind her back, ruthlessly punishing her for her provocation last night. When the servant left, Han Yunqi's tense nerves finally relaxed, letting him run wild. "Long Fei Yi, I'm so tired." When Han Yunqi was about to fall asleep, she faintly heard Long Fei Yi say, "Fool, there won't be a next time." She immediately woke up and glared at him. With a flushed face and large angry eyes, Long Fei Yi couldn't help laughing. However, he still seriously warned, take care of your body. You still owe this prince a dozen babies. Han Yunqi hooked her finger, indicating for him to come closer. When Long Fei Yi came closer, she told him the secret formula in a low voice. She was proficient in acupuncture, so she naturally had a way to prevent pregnancy without harming her body. When Long Fei Yi heard this, he forced out a smile. That's good. She saw the disappointment and helplessness in his eyes. He gently stroked the bite mark on her chest, deep in thought. After a while, he rubbed her bangs and revealed a pampering smile. Go to sleep. Chu Tianyin will come over tonight, so I'll be a bit late. Han Yunqi didn't make a sound, but her heart felt suffocated. Long Fei Yi was just like last night. Without saying anything, he turned and left. His back disappeared from the window, but Han Yunqi was still staring at him in a daze. After a while, Han Yunqi finally sat up. She wasn't like before, using acupuncture to prevent pregnancy as soon as she woke up. Instead, she tidied up her clothes and called a servant to send her to Ningjing's side. What was she doing? Some were bruises, some were red, some were deep, some were shallow. Although she was inexperienced, Mu Linger could tell. These were definitely marks left after a frenzy, including the bite mark right in the middle of Han Yunqi's chest. Judging from the depth of the bite mark, it should have been left last night, so, Mu Linger finally raised her head and looked at Han Yunqi in disbelief. Sister, did you have an affair last night? Mu Linger felt that something was wrong after saying that and immediately corrected herself. Long Fei Yi snuck into Myriad Merchant Hall last night. Mu Linger thought to herself. Long Fei Yi was such a cold person, yet he could torment her sister to this extent. How on earth did he torment her? Mu Linger's ears couldn't help but heat up. Han Yunqi's face was already completely red, but she ignored her embarrassment and shyness and urged, hurry and take a look. How should I use the medicine? Sister, you, Mu Linger stuttered for a long time before asking, do you want to leave all these scars? Han Yunqi was stunned, then her face turned even redder. Mu Linger still didn't understand that there was no need to leave these scars, because they were often there. With Long Fei's fetish, he'd do it every time. That's it. Hurry and help me think of a way. Han Yunqi tried very hard to ignore her embarrassment as she pointed at the bite mark on her chest and urged. Mu Linger had already noticed that Han Yunqi's face was completely red. She thought, this sister is really going all out to leave scars. She doesn't even care about her face anymore. Sister, don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Mu Linger promised with a straight face. Han Yunqi glanced at her, and she happened to look at Han Yunqi. Their eyes met, and Mu Linger finally couldn't help but burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. She really wanted to say, Han Yunqi, so there are times when you're this silly too. Han Yunqi pulled a long face. Are you going to give me the medicine or not? Mu Linger tried very hard to calm herself down. She asked with a smile, how deep do you want the scars to be? The deeper, the better. I want the kind of scars that will remain even after death, Han Yunqi said seriously. Mu Linger became serious. Sister, what are you trying to do? It'll hurt a lot. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and make the medicine. Han Yunqi urged unhappily. Mu Linger was still hesitating when Han Yunqi's stern gaze made her wilt. She said, then you have to promise me something. If Long Fei Yi asks, don't tell him that I helped you. Of course, Han Yunqi said. Mu Linger immediately went to grab some medicine to mix. She mashed a few ingredients and added some special medicine to mash them into a paste before finally presenting it to Han Yunxi. Sister, when you apply this, your skin will sizzle and burn. It'll be very painful. You should think about it. Mu Ling'er suddenly understood and exclaimed, "You're pregnant." Sure. Han Yunxi's glare could kill, but Mu Ling'er wasn't afraid. She lowered her voice and asked, "You're really pregnant?" "I wanted to ask you. I took these medicine more than a month ago. If I were to get pregnant now, would it affect me?" Han Yunxi asked seriously. Mu Ling'er finally understood what was going on. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. She hesitated for a while before looking at the prescription seriously. Finally, she gave an answer. "It won't affect me. Look, be serious." Han Yunxi was very careful with her patients, but she was even more careful with herself. "I'm sure Mu Ling'er wouldn't make a mistake in this kind of thing." Han Yunxi sighed softly and didn't say anything else. Mu Ling'er sat down in front of her and looked at her suspiciously. "What are you looking at?" Han Yunxi asked. Mu Ling'er didn't say anything. She took her hand to check her pulse. Han Yunxi avoided her. "Not yet. Sis." Mu Ling'er was anxious. "You want to get pregnant at this juncture?" "I still have something to do with the elders. I'll leave first." Han Yunxi avoided the topic and wanted to leave. Mu Ling'er didn't let her. "Sis, let's talk about this." Han Yunxi still didn't want to talk about it. She pushed her away and wanted to leave. "Sis, I'm from your family. Let's talk." Mu Ling'er pressed on her wheelchair. She had never sounded so serious before. "Family." Han Yunxi's heart skipped a beat, but she compromised in the end. "Sis, you still have a battle with Bai Yanqing. It's unknown how dangerous it will be. How are you going to settle the grudge between Eastern and Western Qin?" Mu Ling'er said calmly, "Sis, you've seen how Ningjing is. She's already 4 months pregnant, but she's still hiding it. Don't tell me you want to be like her." "Long Fei Yi and Tang Li are different," Han Yunxi retorted. "You're different from Ningjing too." Ling'er was agitated. In her heart, Han Yunxi was always rational and mature. "Sis, Ningjing said that when you leave three-way black market, she'll leave too. She can hide to raise and give birth. Can you do the same?" "Sis, Long Fei Yi wants to bring you back to Heaven Mountain now. Can you do it?" Mu Ling'er asked again. If Han Yunxi could do it, she would have gone into hiding long ago after the misunderstanding between her and Long Fei Yi was resolved. There were no Western Qin princesses in this world. How desperate must the D clan be after persevering for so many years? Back then, didn't Long Fei Yi say something out of anger and ask her to stay by his side incognito? Han Yunxi was silent. She knew better than Mu Ling'er that it wasn't the right time. However, Long Fei Yi's lonely eyes kept appearing in her mind. Chapter 920. Han Yunxi had always been firm. The only thing that could shake her heart was Long Fei Yi's every word and action. She was the only one in the world who knew that a cold person like Long Fei Yi would look forward to having a child so much. He was high and mighty, and his wealth was comparable to a country's. He could get whatever he wanted. She really couldn't give him much. Seeing that Han Yunxi didn't say anything, Mu Ling'er scolded her, "Your legs haven't even recovered. You've been so busy these days that you can't even take care of your meals. How can you still be pregnant? If you really want to have a child, you should get rid of that Bai guy as soon as possible. You should settle the grudge between East and Western Qin. You can have as many children as you want. Sis, even if you can hold on for 10 months, what about after the child is born? Mu Ling asked again. Perhaps after 10 months, East and Western Qin would be reconciled, and the world would be at peace. Long Fei Yi would be able to accompany her to enjoy the joy of a family reunion. Perhaps it wouldn't even take 10 months. Soon, East and Western Qin would be at war. Everything would be unpredictable. What about the child? Would they continue to hide, or would they become the target of public criticism, or would they become something that both sides would fight over? Sis, you don't even know martial arts. You're always a burden to Long Fei Yi. Can you guarantee that if you have a child, you won't be a burden to Long Fei Yi? He's got a lot of guts on his shoulders. Mu Ling had said everything she could, but Han Yunxi remained silent. Mu Ling seemed impulsive and reckless, but her heart was more delicate than anyone else's. If it weren't for this delicate heart, she would probably have been tortured to death by Gu. Mu Ling knew that Han Yunxi understood what she said. It would be difficult for her to convince Han Yunxi. She hesitated for a moment and said one last sentence, Sis, you and I are both motherless children. You should understand. These words were like a knife that gouged Han Yunxi's heart. Not only did she not have a mother, she didn't even have a father. Ever since he was young, he had longed for stability and companionship. She had suffered the hardships of being homeless, lonely, and helpless, so she hoped to give her child the best of everything. Responsibility didn't start from the moment she had children, but from the moment she decided to give them life. Han Yunxi still didn't say anything. She lowered her eyes, pushed the wheel, and slowly went out. Mu Linger didn't chase after her. She looked at Han Yunxi's receding figure, and her heart ached for no reason. Han Yunxi, what kind of decision did you make? After Han Yunxi left Ning Jing's courtyard, she immediately went to the Elders' Guild. Although her face was full of fatigue, her eyes were clear and firm, sharp and spirited, as if all the troubles and contradictions had never existed. Fifth Elder, Kangon Private Bank will send someone over to sign the secret agreement later. When the time comes, you'll sign the agreement on behalf of Myriad Merchant Hall. Prepare well tonight and release the news early tomorrow morning. Remember to inform the auction house and prepare to write something, so that when the auction opens tomorrow, we can warm up the place, Han Yunxi instructed seriously. Princess plans to travel? Head Elder asked curiously. We can't delay the matter at the casino. Uncle Cheng is right. If East Origin Hall gets ahead of us, we won't be able to do anything. Uncle Cheng and I will make a trip. You should come with us. If we can agree on the price, we'll get it done today. Han Yunxi said. This price of 500 million is really. Head Elder still felt the pinch for the money. Uncle Cheng, who had been silent all this time, immediately spoke up, Head Elder, if you continue to hesitate, we might as well not go. Let East Origin Hall buy it, and then you'll regret it. Head Elder glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Uncle Cheng continued, if Master Ning was here, he wouldn't hesitate for so long. These words made everyone sigh with emotion. Ning Cheng was famous for being decisive, and indeed wouldn't hesitate. If Ning Cheng, the clan head, was here, the Council of Elders wouldn't have to take such a huge risk. If Master Ning isn't here, then it's fine as long as the princess is. It's the same for the princess to decide on this matter. When Fifth Elder said this, Head Elder was even more speechless. Han Yunxi didn't say much either. After agreeing on a time with Uncle Cheng and Head Elder, she returned to her room to catch up on sleep. Uncle Cheng had prepared everything. Seeing that it was still early, he planned to go to the auction house to take a look. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped out of Myriad Merchant Hall, someone wrapped an arm around his neck from behind. "Who's there?" Uncle Ching was about to retaliate, but the person behind him warned him coldly, "Uncle Ching, why don't you try and hit me? I'll immediately tell Han Yunxi that you were looking for me." Jin Z. Uncle Ching was shocked. He had been so busy with the casino that he had neglected this guy. He said in a low voice, "Do you think Han Yunxi will believe you?" "Of course she won't believe me, but she will believe the 3 manservants in my hands." Deacon Jean lowered his head, his fine bangs covering his eyes. His eyes couldn't be seen, but the slight curve of his lips was cold and malicious. Han Yunxi has been looking for those 3 manservants for a long time. Uncle Ching was finally shocked. Those 3 manservants were the ones he had sent to smash up the casino. Didn't he give them money to leave 3-way black market? How did they end up in Deacon Jin's hands? "Jin Z, let me go, and I'll give you your indenture agreement right now," Uncle Ching said seriously. Deacon Jin laughed loudly. "Indenture agreement? What do I need it for?" "Let me tell you, if Myriad Merchant Hall doesn't help me pay off my debt to Kengon Private Bank, I'm not done with you." Where was Uncle Ching going to take out more than 300 million to pay off his debt? Deacon Jin knew Uncle Ching very well, so he wanted Uncle Ching to persuade Han Yunxi and the Elders Guild to help him pay off his debt. However, Uncle Ching knew that Han Yunxi would never help Deacon Jin pay off his debt. Uncle Ching knew Deacon Jin too well. Deacon Jin looked calm, but he was actually an extremely vicious character. If this matter wasn't settled, he would never have a day of peace. Uncle Ching hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Give me 2 days. I'll go out for a while and come back to help you pay off your debt." Deacon Jin laughed coldly. "Uncle Ching, are you going out to get money? Han Yunxi and Head Elder are going to buy 2 gardens. I have a way to get some money. There's more than 250 million. Adding my savings, it's enough to pay off your debt," Uncle Ching said seriously. "Why should I believe you?" Deacon Jin asked in return. "You can choose not to believe me. If you go find Han Yunxi right now, I won't have a good time. You won't have a good time either," Uncle Ching said coldly. Deacon Jin hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he let Uncle Ching go. He wasn't afraid that Uncle Ching would run away, so he would trust him this time. He said, "All right, pay off your debt first. We'll talk about the indenture agreement later." Although Uncle Ching nodded, a cold glint flashed through his eyes. Once he got his hands on those 3 servants, how could he let Deacon Jin off? Was this brat tired of living to behave so atrociously in Myriad Merchant Hall's territory? Han Yunxi only caught up on an hour's sleep before decisively getting out of bed. She washed her face to wake herself up, then set off immediately. Uncle Cheng and garden owner Jia Dai had arranged to meet at South Ju Garden, which was close to 3-way black market. They arrived in less than 2 hours. Entering South Ju Garden side gate, they sat on a palanquin and were carried by servants for a long distance before arriving at a courtyard. There was a pavilion in the courtyard that was very imposing. Jia Dai was at the bottom of the pavilion, welcoming them. This Jia Dai was about 50 years old. He had a grizzled goatee and was dressed in a black robe. He was low-key and steady, giving off the impression that his background wasn't simple. "Old Master Jia, this is my master, Madam Han." Uncle Ching only introduced Han Yunxi, while First Elder disguised himself as a servant. Jia Dai smiled and bowed. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he invited them upstairs. When they entered the tea house, Jia Dai found an opportunity to replace his knees with 2 fingers and kneel in front of Han Yunxi. He then said, "Madam Han, please forgive our humble tea for not serving you well. Old Master Jia is too courteous, Han Yunxi replied politely to show that she knew what was going on. After a few cups of tea, Uncle Qing said, "Old Master Jia, my master agreed to the price you mentioned last time. I wonder if today..." Before Uncle Qing could finish, Jia Dai interrupted, that price. Sigh, to be honest, you're a step too late. What's going on? Han Yunxi pretended to be anxious, but First Elder was really anxious. Someone came early this morning to put down a deposit. To be honest, the buyer is very generous. He offered 600 million taels in one go. He wants both gardens, Jia Dai said with a chuckle. 600 million. First Elder couldn't help but cry out. Uncle Qing kept winking at Jia Dai. Jia Dai finally looked at him and then stepped on his foot under the table. Uncle Qing immediately understood what was going on. This Jia Dai must be testing Han Yunxi to raise the price. Thinking of this, Uncle Qing knew what he should do. He asked, "Old Master Jia, you're not being kind. We agreed on 500 million taels. Master Qing, last time I reminded you that there were already people who had their eyes on my 2 gardens. You didn't put down a deposit at that time, so you can't blame me for this." Jia Dai said confidently. First Elder glanced at Han Yunxi. He was clearly anxious. Only East Origin Hall could afford 600 million taels. Since East Origin Hall was so decisive, it meant that these 2 gardens were indeed valuable. If East Origin Hall really used them to open a casino, then it would be just as Uncle Qing said. Myriad Merchant Hall should never have any ideas about casinos in the future. Jia Leoi, how much did the buyer put down as a deposit? Han Yunxi asked. Jia Dai raised a finger. It was undoubtedly 100 million taels. For such a large transaction, it was impossible to only put down a 10 million taels deposit. 100 million taels. Han Yunxi was deep in thought. She whispered to First Elder, "What do you think?" The Great Elder was hesitant. Previously, he had only guessed that the East Origin Hall would come and buy it. Now that the East Origin Hall had really come to buy it, he had no choice but to reconsider the importance of these 2 territories. However, the price was too high, and it was beyond his expectations. First Elder didn't say anything for a long time. Uncle Qing hurriedly pulled him to the side to persuade him. Uncle Qing couldn't use Ning Qing to pressure First Elder. Uncle Cheng's original intention was only to make things difficult for Han Yunxi. In fact, as long as Han Yunxi couldn't find a site, it was fine if he didn't earn this extra income. But now that he was being threatened by Deacon Jean, he had to take this money to help pay off Deacon Jin's debt. Otherwise, his life would be over. Uncle Cheng persuaded First Elder, and he actually managed to persuade him. Of course, First Elder still respected Han Yunxi's opinion. He said in a low voice, "Princess, you can make the decision." Han Yunxi glanced at Uncle Qing, her gaze distant. She said, "Old Master Jia, will offer 700 million taels. Think about it. You'll still earn more from the liquidated damages." Chapter 921. When Han Yunxi quoted the price of 700 million, Jia Dai's face was filled with shock, but his heart was calm. His Highness had long sent someone to tell him the amount. In contrast, the head elder looked calm on the surface, but his heart was in turmoil. While Myriad Merchant Hall could afford it, the risk was far too great. If Uncle Qing hadn't mentioned Ning Qing, he would never have agreed. Since Madame Han has offered such a sky-high price, she must like these 2 courtyards very much. Since that's the case, it's fine if the old man breaks his promise. Jia Dai pretended to sigh even though he'd gotten a bargain. The head elder was angry in his heart, but he didn't show it. Instead, he said, "Since that's the case, I ask old Master Dai to show the deed to my family's madam for inspection." The head elder had to guard against this Jia Dai trying to sell two goods at once. Since they decided to buy the land, they had to get the deed in hand this time to avoid any more mishaps. Moreover, it was urgent to reopen the gambling house. They had to take advantage of the fact that the gamblers in the black market hadn't all left yet to lure them back. If they delayed any longer, they'd have to spend all sorts of resources to attract more gamblers. Jia Dai quickly went to retrieve the deed and showed it to Han Yunxi to make sure there were no mistakes. Jia Dai probed, "Madam Han, if there's no problem with this deed, can we, old Master Dai, 700 million is no small sum. I don't know if you can pay half of it first and pay the rest at a later date." The head elder made it sound so nice, but it could be summed up in 2 words: he wanted to put the debt on credit. Jia Dai's face immediately turned gloomy as he snatched the deed from Han Yunxi's hands. Cold, he said, "Everyone, Jia Dai, don't put things on credit." The head elder's face alternated between red and white, both embarrassed and angry. Whether it was Cloud Realm Trade Consortium or Myriad Merchant Hall, when had anyone ever dared to say such things? It was simply a disgrace. The head elder suddenly felt like a dog being bullied by a dog. Before he could speak, Uncle Ching said unhappily, "Old Master Jia, what do you mean by this? Are you afraid that we can't afford it?" As soon as Uncle Ching spoke, Han Yunxi, who was about to speak, stopped talking. She didn't expect Uncle Ching to be more anxious than her. Thinking about it, it made sense. Uncle Ching wanted to get a commission, so he naturally had to work hard to make the transaction pay in full. A cold glint flashed through Han Yunxi's eyes as she watched calmly. "If it wasn't for the fact that you couldn't afford it, why would you only pay half up front?" Jia Dai's tone was sarcastic. She deliberately looked at Han Yunxi and said, "I thought Mrs. Han was a generous person. I didn't expect." Hee, if you only intend to pay half of the bill, then I'm sorry. Everyone, please return. Master Jia, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. The great elder couldn't help but say, "What I mean is that we pay half of the money first and settle this matter. Today and tomorrow, our madam will personally visit the 2 gardens. If there are no major problems, she will pay the remaining half of the money." The great elder's words gave himself and Han Yunxi a great platform to step down from. It also meant that he agreed to pay in full. Jia Dai's expression immediately returned to its original amiable and good-natured appearance. "If that's the case, then it's easy to talk about it. There's no need to pay the deposit first. Old man will take you to visit the 2 gardens now." Han Yunxi whispered to the great elder, "That's the only way. Send someone back to prepare the money. We'll walk around the gardens. When we go back, we can also discuss the remodeling. I just took a look along the way, and the garden shouldn't have changed much." The great elder's heart was filled with helplessness. He felt that this matter was happening too quickly, and it made him a little flustered. However, if they didn't act quickly and someone else beat them to it, then it would be very difficult for them to make a comeback. "Princess," this subordinate also took a serious look just now. "Even the few courtyards we passed by don't need to be remodeled. As long as we transport the things from the casino over, we can use them directly." The great elder said in a low voice. "That's good. This garden is big, so it's not impossible to use the courtyards in front first. We can discuss the remodeling slowly," Han Yunxi said in a low voice. That was what the great elder meant. He didn't want to miss this business opportunity the most. Just like that, Han Yunxi's group, accompanied by Jia Dai and a few servants, finished touring South Ju Garden at night. The actual layout of South Ju Garden was much better than what they had seen on the drawings. There were very few places that needed to be remodeled, and they were all small projects. The Great Elder had been hoping to find some major damage so that he could bargain with Jia Dai. Unfortunately, this garden was so well maintained that he had no chance at all. After dinner, Jia Dai warmly invited them to stay in South Jew Garden for the night, and they would set off for West Jade Garden tomorrow. It would take at least half a day to travel from South Jew Garden to West Jade Garden. Princess, stay here for the night. If we return to Myriad Merchant Hall, we'll have to walk for another 4 hours tomorrow, the Great Elder advised. Han Yunxi hesitated for a moment, then said, "We're not going back to Myriad Merchant Hall, and we're not staying here. Uncle Cheng, go tell Master Jia that we're in a hurry. We'll rush to West Jade Garden tonight. Tomorrow, we'll rest in West Jade Garden for a while, and then immediately visit the garden. Princess, your health is more important," the Great Elder advised with concern. "It's fine. I can sleep in the carriage," Han Yunxi insisted. Long Fei Ye's lonely eyes made her not want to delay any longer. She couldn't wait to find Bai Yanqing to settle the score. Uncle Cheng was also impatient. He couldn't rest easy until he destroyed Deacon Jin's mouth. He immediately went to find Jia Dai to tell him. Jia Dai naturally agreed and immediately went to arrange a carriage. However, just as he finished preparing everything, Su Donglin suddenly appeared out of thin air. "Elder Jia, long time no see." Su Donglin hugged his sword and leaned against the wall. Jia Dai was surprised to see him. "Your Highness is here too." "His Highness is still at the black market. I just came to tell you that the princess is used to riding in His Highness' carriage. You have to arrange a comfortable one for her." If the princess is bumped, before Su Donglin could finish, Jia Dai nodded repeatedly. "Understood, understood. I've already instructed the West Jade Garden to prepare a room in Bright Moon Hotel for the princess." Only then did Su Donglin disappear, satisfied. Just like that, Han Yunxi and the others rushed to West Jade Garden through the night, while Long Fei Yi met with Chu Tianyin at East Origin Hall. "I spent a lot of effort to find a way to have that goshawk lead the way. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, he was already gone," Chu Tianyin said calmly. These days, he didn't pay attention to the political situation, nor did he pay attention to the Western Zhou Emperor's mobilization of the army. He was almost entirely focused on finding Gu Beiyue. He kept the goshawk that delivered the letter for Gu Beiyue. He didn't know who raised that goshawk. He used all kinds of methods and found someone who understood the language of beasts. A few days ago, he finally succeeded in getting the goshawk to lead the way. Unfortunately, by the time he found the valley, the courtyard in the valley was already empty. "Can you determine when he left?" Long Fei Yi asked. "At least a month. He should have moved to another place," Chu Tianyin said seriously. Long Fei Yi didn't hide anything and told Chu Tianyin about their situation at Black Tower. Chu Tianyin's brows furrowed deeper as he listened. If that's the case, then it's very likely that Bai Yanqing is near the three-way black market. I've already sent people to secretly search for places where he could easily hide, but unfortunately there's been no news so far, Long Fei Yi said calmly. "What do you think about Ningqing?" Long Fei Yi asked. Chu Tianyin hated Ningqing to the core. Even though Long Fei Yi asked him so directly, he still avoided the question. "Long Fei Yi, my Chu clan has no right to interfere in the affairs of Eastern and Western Qin, and I have no interest in doing so. I only hope that you can keep your promise and release my two Chu clan elders." Chu Tianyin was quite open-minded. Just as everyone was preparing to capture Bai Yanqing dragged his heavily injured body and hid as he rushed to the valley. His poison skills were exquisite, and his martial arts were superb. There was no need for him to hide like this. However, Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi, whom he had spent so much effort to separate, were still working together. One's poison skills were on par with his, and the other's martial arts were better than his. The two of them working together were his natural enemies. He wasn't stupid enough to confront them directly. He decided to give up his original plan and take Gu Beiyue to Northernly. However, when he entered the room, he found it was a mess. Gu Beiyue was gone. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.